What's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I'm your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, coming off of a previous 3-hour live stream. We've got to roll right into the next one. I am still sort of setting up. I am not inebriated in the slightest. I don't know what you're talking about. Welcome. This is a analysis, a full analysis. Buckle up. This is not going to be quick. This is not a virgin analysis. This is not a first timer. This is not an unwrapped analysis. This is going long and deep. Welcome to probably 2 to 3 hours. I'm warning you now. Get it ready. 2 to 3 hours of me talking about a giant pile of trash named Mark Zaid, who's representing an absolute pit of a human named Mark Waid, and a bunch of little fairy fanboy industry professionals hand-jobbing each other over their lack of legal advice. Guys, I'm already several drinks in. This stream's gonna be a little uncivil and a little unhinged. So deal with that. Get ready. Spread it around. I hope anuses are puckered on the anti-Comicsgate side, because I am going to ream my way through this stupid document. And this whiny little sniveling manlet, Mark Zaid, has filed 100 pages of garbage. And let's be real. Guys, let me just give you a preview. Look at these exhibits. We've got AP stuff. We've got redacted names on Twitter. We've got anti-Comicsgate publications whining and crying about the mean words of Richard Meyer, as if a mean word matters. As if a mean word matters. We have footnotes to Bleeding Cool, the biggest pile of non-man soy products you can find reporting on comics. We've got footnotes referencing him directly. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna be all over this stuff, and I'm done with being nice about it. I'm done with this pile of miscreants. These little gay ops operatives out there on the anti-Comicsgate side, accusing Comicsgate people of harassment, accusing Comicsgate people of doxing, accusing Comicsgate people of everything, when all they want to do is make some flipping comics and sell them to people who will buy them. That's it. And these little sniveling pieces of trash are hiding behind computers and anonymity and doxing people, calling their works, trying to ruin their lives, and they're just disgusting little pansies. I'm tired of it. I wish I could say words, but I don't know if you guys know, but the kill stream, friends of mine, got nuked for mean words on the internet. So I'm going to ask you a very specific request. And this is going to start every one of my streams for the near future, because I am tired of giving money to pathetic cucks like YouTube. And I'm tired of people like the Wall Street Journal having authority over our fun and our entertainment, because they can't take jokes that aren't even directed at them and don't concern them. Okay? Because they can't take jokes. And that's what Comicsgate's about. And that's what all of this stuff is about. The fact that a bunch of little fragile snowflakes can't take a joke and can't hear a particular word, so they have to shut everybody down. So I'm going to ask you to please oblige me in this. I love and appreciate every super chat that is sent. I very much appreciate it. You guys help me do this as a job. And that is the greatest thing in the world. And I can't thank you enough. But I'm going to ask you to please start shifting away from Super Chats and towards Streamlabs. There's a link right up at the top. It's called Justice Chat. Unfortunately, you can't click on it. But if you type that into your browser, that will give you to a link to the Streamlabs option to pay me to do a super chat. It is better than YouTube because YouTube takes 30% of what you want to send to me to have your chat talked about, read, and addressed on stream. Streamlabs takes, there's a processing payment. It's like 3%. And if you want to, you can cover that. That's up to you. You don't have to do that to feel bad for me. Either way, I don't know what, it doesn't tell me when you do or don't or anything like that. Please start using Streamlabs. I'm tired of giving money away, giving money to people like YouTube who will take money away from cancer research because someone said a word that a certain group of people doesn't agree with. And that's journalists, by the way. Journalists who have only existed in this country through free speech are opposed to it now because that's how cucked and backwards our stupid society is, with public education, with idiots teaching people in college, with people who are afraid to say the truth because their livelihood will get shut down. I'm done with it. So if you donate on Streamlabs, I will very much appreciate it. Of course, if there's a super chat, I will very much appreciate it as well. But I would ask that you stop giving YouTube your money. Stop giving them your money. They're taking it, they're putting it towards cancer on our society. Our society was literally built by people who would be hung for their speech. And here we are saying, I'm worried that this might be offensive to someone. No, 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 no. No more. No more. YouTube wouldn't exist without the idea of free speech. And I'm going to clip out a rant from the Chad Dad chat I just had with Doug Tenneple and Larry Bleidner, where I talked about how backwards everybody's thinking is on this. Whenever they say it's a private business, they can do what they want. They have free speech. They're not private. They're not private businesses. When you hold yourself out to the public as a business, you're now a place of public accommodation. You can't forbid black people from coming into your store. You're not private anymore. That's a rhyme, so it means truth. If you can't not bake a gay cake, then you're not private. That's fine if that's what we're choosing as societies. But these weasels don't get to hide behind private companies anymore. They're not private. They belong to you and me. They exist on property rights that are taken from us through eminent domain. If you want to learn all about easements and cable lines that run under your property, that'll be a separate stream. You don't have a right to say no to a cable company because your government is involved in giving them the right to run across your property. They're not private. Stop it. Stop it. That brainwashing ends. It ends now. It has to, or we're done. We're done with just watching My Little Pony and talking about how great all the popular media is. Because that's where it's going. Because that's who's stopping speech. Big media companies that know they're about to die. So stop it. Okay? Rant on pause for a little bit. Let me address a couple chats. Let me address a couple of these PayPal donations that have come through from Streamlabs. Thank you so much. I've switched over to Streamlabs. I was on regular OBS, so I hope everything is laid out properly. There's some tweaks I'll be working on. Thank you for bearing with me through this. And guys, I have to be really unprofessional and eat on stream as well because I didn't have time between the streams. So you're going to get rage, food, liquor, legal analysis. It's all here. And you can't find it on CBS. Cooked by soy. That's CBS from now on. I'm so pissed off today. All right. Here we go. Let's start getting into this. Okay, so today was Mark Waid's deadline to file his response to Diversity in Comics lawsuit over his tortious interference. I'm not even saying alleged anymore. It was tortious interference. He's going to get properly bent over in Texas, and he knows it. And his stupid little chump attorney, Mark Zaid, who thinks he's God's gift to the legal system, is just a flailing little man baby, just like Mark Waid, hiding behind Washington, D.C. politics and out there criticizing, the president said mean things. Oh, it hurts. People are harassing me on Twitter. Grow a pair, you pathetic pile of fake man that you are. Get over it, you chump. You came out swinging against everybody. Everybody had treated you with respect and caution until you opened your stupid mouth, you dumb pile of cocks. Okay? That's you. You're an idiot. You're borderline unethical. It's disgusting. You make our attorney profession look like every bad stereotype, and it's you. It's you doing it. It's not anybody else, because you're threatening to dox and harass people who are donating to Meyer's campaign. How about we run discovery on Waid's campaign? How about that? What would that do? What would you do if someone from Comicsgate said, let's run discovery and reveal the name of Waid's campaign contributions? I mean, except that there's less of them. But what would you say about that? You'd call it harassment. Because you're a disingenuous pile of trash. You probably know that you really can't discover a legal fund that was created 7 months after an event and is unrelated to it, right? You probably know that there's no probative value in doing it. You're just trying to threaten, harass, and intimidate people because you're a tiny little human. You're tiny. You're disgusting. You maggot. I hate people like you. Because you make me have to go through hurdles to convince people that attorneys aren't evil. But you are the cum stain on the rag of society. You are hanging out on the dress of every White House intern under Bill Clinton. Just sitting there like a sad reminder to what America has become. You, Mark Zaid, are disgusting. You are a degenerate. And you should be maybe disbarred. You pathetic pile of garbage. All right. Sorry. Guys, I told you. I'm already wound up. Let's get into this. Okay. Couple chats, and then we will delve right into the documents. Hold on one second. Let me pull up the chat thing. Clay's roommate says, welcome back, Nick. Thanks, buddy. Glad to be back. Mr. Rivik says, rage, get some. Kathurga says, okay, just don't keep me in suspense. Does Zaid actually sign his brief? I need to know this. I'll jump right to that in just a second and we'll find out. John Sislowski says, I wish I got hand jobs without legal advice. Hashtag me too. Plum Logan says, are you aware of Killstream's 6K viewership on D-Line tonight? I am not. I've been streaming all night, but best wishes to Ralph of the Killstream and the Killstream, everybody involved in that, and the viewers. Don't give in to this stuff. And I'm hoping to have Ralph and Zidane on my show sometime very soon, maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm talking about it either way, no matter who's on, but I hope to have them on the show. The Bearded Doog says, best $5 ever spent. Thanks, buddy. Lord Akira says, go off king. Now, let me get into these... let's get into these chats that came through on Streamlabs, which will pop up over my face on the Streamlab app. But I don't have a way yet to catalog them. I'm working on it. And also, Streamlabs doesn't have a way for me to switch from top chat to live chat. I'm working on it. This is all new to me. But let me read through these real quick. Keck7Go says, you are appropriately sloshed for this, just like lawsuit video number 1. Also, thanks for extra streaming. Great excuse for me to paint more minis. Thorn Tizzle says, you're insane for doing both of these streams back to back. F YouTube and the rest of these humorless sacks. Yes. Vertistrom says, big fan, Nick. Haven't been able to catch you live recently since the new job has me waking up early. Just caught up on the Chad Dad stream and am ready for round 2. Keep up the good fight, Nick. Have some drinks on me. Streamlabs is greater than Super Chat. Yes, sir. Whoa. Whoa. Thank you so much for that. That was a $100 contribution. Thank you, Vertistrom, for that. I appreciate it very much, buddy. Vince DeCola says, testing, 1, 2, 3. I think it's testes, 1, 2, 3. Raymond Delay says, F the tube. The man named Kiwi says, Nick, Fireball Rekieta is going to obliterate Super Chats with no survivors. Abadisi says, just learning to use Streamlabs because of quickly rising to #1 YouTuber. I never even liked Law, mostly because of the BS. Me either. And we're going to cut through it with a hot frickin' knife. I'm tired of these people dictating law. I'm tired of people, it's all the same. Trust me, you go to law school, you find like 5 good people and a pile of the rest of them with the same sort of mindset. And it's got to stop. And we're going to talk about it more and more. Hot Dog says, bear. Siren Jag says, this rant has me practically Randy. Stream on D Live says, hey man, that was an effing amazing rant. If you really want to stick it to the a-holes that YouTube are, join the Ralph Retort on D Live. They've been nothing but nice to him, even redoing the site after they crashed it with too many viewers. We'll see. Right now, I'm going to work on YouTube. I'm also going to see if I can do a multi-stream to D Live and see about that. I would love to stop giving money to Google. I'm tired of them having hold over people's income. Tomb said, Nick, I think I love you totally in a straight way. Thanks, buddy. # no homo. Aries Lives donated. He said, Rekieta, welcome to the Wild West end of YouTube. Yes, absolutely. And finally, there was one more, let's see, a couple more chats that came through, or one more. Midnight in Exile said, nail them 99 thesis. Shout out Tech Force, next big CG property. Yes, Tech Force, check it out. Okay, let's check out this signature. Let's see who signed it. If it was Zaid, if it was the big lady, or if it was signed by, the assistant, Ryan Pierce. The junior attorney signed the document. Zaid's name is on it. Reeves' name is on it. Ryan Pierce is the signature that is there. Zaid did not sign this. Let's be clear about something. I'm pretty sure that Zaid did not violate his ethical obligations. However, I think that Zaid and Reeves and everybody in Austin probably knows this by now. Reeves, you dummy. You should not have misrepresented the fact that Zaid was still representing Mark Waid. Let's be real honest about this. You're not the first firm to do it either. That chump intermediary firm in Dallas that Zaid hired at first, they didn't tell Meyer that Zaid was still on board, and neither did you. And you're a scumbag for it, Reeves. You deserve every piece of ridicule that comes your way. You misrepresented the fact that there was pro hoc vice counsel. You didn't tell the opposing counsel about it. You acted like you were a new lawyer to the case who needed 3 weeks to respond. You misrepresented yourself, and it may not have been against the rules, but you know in spirit it was unethical. And Zaid, you're already a weasel, and everybody knows it, and you're disgusting. I had respect for you. And if you go back and listen, you'll find the respect for you where I gave you every piece of deference. Now I know you're just a scumbag like the rest of the people in this profession, and you deserve to be drugged through the street peacefully as possible and made fun of, sir. All right. Tranquil Blue says this will be some funny goss considering most of this is based off of tweets. Still, there might be an angle hidden there that's salient. I don't know yet. Defendant's motion to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction. So, if you're not familiar, a court has to be able to exercise personal jurisdiction over someone who has done something. If you're going to haul them into court in that jurisdiction, they have to have a legal reason to do so. Typically, personal jurisdiction requires you to avail yourself of the court. There are multiple ways to do that. One is to engage in business in the forum. If you are accepting the protections, like you enter into a contract in the forum, then if something went wrong with the contract, you'd be expecting that forum to defend your rights. Then you're engaged in the forum. You're availing yourself of the forum. If you commit a tort within a forum, you're also availing yourself of the forum. If you are doing it within the forum. So they're going to argue that this tort was not committed in the forum by some weird pile of voodoo. I don't know what plan they have for that, but that's the goal. And they're going to argue that Texas has no pull over Mark Waid, which is pretty hard to argue considering Mark Waid does a ton of business all over the country. All over the country because he sells comic books in every state. He's working, now he's an employee of a publisher, I think, right? He's an executive at a publishing house. He's owned a different publishing company or worked on it. Maybe, I don't know, correct me on it, that's fine. But even so, he called a publisher in Texas about a contract in Texas involving another guy in Texas. What does he think he's doing? What does he think he's committing a tort? In Texas, you idiot! You blathering man-child! You disgusting excuse for a human who would mock the death of one of your colleagues' wives? You ridiculous pile of trash. Oh my gosh. Who would lie about the fact that he was a business partner with someone to try and squeeze more money out of unwitting professionals. By the way, comics professionals have shown themselves to be the least educated people on the planet in all of this. And so Mark Waid, knowing this by being a consummate moron himself, is taking advantage of a bunch of other morons who probably all need adult assistance. I can't take it. I can't take it. Let's see what his argument is. Defendant Mark Waid, Mr. Waid or defendant, files this motion to dismiss pursuant to Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 12b2 because this court lacks personal jurisdiction over Mr. Waid. This lawsuit filed by Richard Meyer, Mr. Meyer or plaintiff, respectfully should be dismissed. Introduction. Plaintiff brought this suit against Mark Waid, a California citizen with no contacts with Texas, except for the except for the unlawful activity he committed in Texas. In Texas. In an illegitimate effort to intimidate and silence Mr. Waid's free speech. No, you don't have free speech here, Waid. You don't have free speech on this. Mr. Waid is a well-known comic book author who's written stories featuring many of the world's iconic superheroes, such as Superman, Captain America, Wonder Woman, and Daredevil, to name a few. Plaintiff created a YouTube channel to promote his views that comics have become too diverse in gender, race, and sexuality in terms of characters and creators. Lie! You liar! You lying scumbag! That's not what he was saying. He was saying a forced political agenda in these particular comics is bad. You disgusting people. Views that are regularly expressed with patently offensive and hateful language. Here's some hateful language. Whoever typed this up is a weeping pile of period blood. Okay? How's that for hateful? Turn in whatever masculinity you may have had left. It's gone now. You disgust me too. Stop lying. Write your briefs without lying, you cowards. Or can you? Can you possibly represent a client without lying? Okay. Plaintiff also sought to create his own comic book entitled Jawbreaker's Lost Souls. No, he didn't sought to create it. He did create it. It's your client who tried to stop him. No one else wanted to stop him. Just your little man-child with his diapers on wanted to stop him. When a publisher decided not to publish his book after learning about plaintiff's ongoing negative campaign against diversity from your client in a misrepresentative fashion with industry pressure. Why did you leave those facts out, you lying sack of garbage? And if you want to try to call them not facts, why don't you listen to your own client put his own dick in his mouth about it? Huh? Why don't you listen to him gobble his own man juice while he brags to the world about how virtuous he is on Bleeding Cool in the stupidest, most ill-advised interview I've ever seen? Why don't you quote that, you lying sack of maggots? Plaintiff baselessly blamed Mr. Waid. Baselessly? Based on Waid's own words, you idiot, who is an outspoken proponent of diversity and defender of women. Defender of women. You mocked a man's dead wife. You bullied an African-American woman who you were in business with to the point where police needed to be called. Defender of women. You're a defender of the idea of women. The fake idea of women that repulses women. You single, soy-filled sack of trash who couldn't defend a woman hard enough to marry her. I don't even know how old you are. You pathetic failure of a man. Defender of women. Like they need help from you, you condescending sack. Defender of women and others historically underrepresented. Oh, you white savior. Yes, please call all of the black people and demand their thank yous and homage for all of the defense you've done for them. Have you marched in a street? Have you faced physical violence? Have you faced arrest? No, you're a coward who hides behind a massively inflated platform with sycophantic handjobbery keeping you afloat. You are disgusting. Underrepresented in the comics industry rather than putting the blame where it belongs. Plaintiff's own unfavorable reputation he created through his personal words and conduct that AP knew about already. Plaintiff's refusal to accept responsibility and appetite for attention. Appetite for attention? You're sitting here glory hounding over your defense of women and minorities. You worst white person stereotype. The absolute worst. You're the absolute worst type of human. And they don't want your help. Minorities and women don't want a cis white. Are you cis? Or are you gay? I don't even know anymore. They don't need you. It's not 1915 anymore, Mark Waid. They don't need you. Women are shockingly capable of defending themselves. African Americans have risen to the presidency, to the every highest level of office. They don't need a white man with the pastiest face and the reddest little fake goatee to come in and rescue them. On the whitest horse you can imagine, you racist pile of disgusting garbage. I hate these people. I hate them. They don't need your help, Waid or Zaid, with your little curly hair and your little TV appearances that make you feel important. They don't need you. How about when you oppress the government of Libya? Why do you hate Libyans, Zaid? Huh? How about that? Should we do that? Should we come up with fake narratives about people? Is that how we do things now? You're supposed to be a lawyer, you disgusting piece of garbage. Oh, guys, I hate censoring myself because I'd rather just yell all sorts of explicatives at these people. I hate them. I hate them. I hate people like this who so disdain women and minorities that they think that they need to be rescued all the time. Ugh. You gallant sons. You're not gonna get laid from this. Zaid, I don't think you're married either. What failure of a man are you that in like 55 years of life, you haven't been able to get a woman to say yes? All of your defense means nothing. Right? Right? If you're not married and you don't have kids, then why are you looking at Disney young girls on your YouTube? I defended that too. I think I'll stop now. Because you've shown yourself to be the scumbag that everyone told me you were. My goodness gracious. Plaintiff asserts claims against Mr. Waid for tortious interference with contract and defamation. These claims are completely meritless, but the problem at the outset, in which is proper to address, is that this court lacks personal jurisdiction over Mr. Waid. Plaintiff's complaint fails to identify any allegations or facts establishing any connection between Mr. Waid and Texas. How about the fact that he called a Texas company to talk about a Texas person about a Texas contract? Don't mess with Texas, you idiot. They don't care about your feelings. It's Texas. Instead, plaintiff merely alleges, no, he doesn't allege a single phone call. Waid admits to a phone call, and multiple ones, by the way, because he said he left a message first. So you've already lied in your motion. You know it was more than one phone call. You left a message with a secretary, and then you talked to the CEO of AP, and you know you brigaded them, and you encouraged others to do the same, and you reduced an Asian man to tears. You disgusting racist. You know you did it. You know you intimidated him. And you're awful for it. That is far short. Oh, wait, sorry. Alleges a single phone call between Mr. Waid, who was in California at the time, and a San Antonio publishing company. That is far short of the necessary substantial connection with Texas to justify personal jurisdiction. No, it isn't. You committed a tort within the state and you know it. That tort occurred in Texas. Didn't occur in California. It couldn't have occurred in any other state. It occurred in Texas. The contract breach was in Texas. The interference with the contract occurred in Texas. Just because you weren't physically there doesn't mean that you didn't do it in Texas. This goes back to the 50s, you disingenuous cuck. Mr. Waid did not even know that a plaintiff apparently lives in Texas. Liar! You just talked about how you weren't sure that AP had done their research on Waid, or on Meyer, right? So you had no idea, right? You lying sack of garbage. I knew he lived in Texas before any of this happened. And I don't even follow him. Or didn't. I guess I kind of do now. You knew because you talked about how much research you did because AP just didn't do it. It also doesn't matter if he lived in Texas. Kind of matters if AP, which you know to be in San Antonio, is in Texas, because that's probably where the contract took place. Particularly in light of plaintiff's effort to create the public impression he is in New York City, as discussed below. Oh, sure. Therefore, Mr. Waid plainly could not have purposely directed any conduct towards Texas. Right. You called a Texas area code, you idiot! You called a Texas area code, and so did all your little sycophantic hate mob that followed you. But even if Mr. Waid knew plaintiff was in Texas, personal jurisdiction would still not exist as a matter of law. Any connection between plaintiff's allegations and Texas is merely collateral. Nope, wrong. For example, the book plaintiff seeks to publish is not about Texas. Doesn't need to be, idiot. It's published in Texas. It's published in Texas and marketed to the world. Yeah, but the income from the world market comes to Texas. You interfere with a contract that benefits Texas. Any taxes he pays, except for Texas doesn't have income tax, will be paid to Texas. You've deprived Texas of revenue, along with Meyer. Don't try and weasel your way out of this. And stem from plaintiff's anti-diversity and harassment campaign, which was aimed at the comic book industry generally rather than specifically Texas. Specious reasoning. Look it up. Maybe you should Wikipedia it, Zaid. Oh my God. Plaintiff fails to establish even a prima facie case of personal jurisdiction over Waid. That's because no one thinks that the judge is stupid enough to think that there's no personal jurisdiction. No one has even considered this argument because it's so pathetically bad. Over Mr. Waid, thus requiring dismissal of this lawsuit. Okay. Pause for a moment. I'm sobering up. We're between sections. I'm going to take a moment. I've got some whiskey. I've got some Streamlabs chats. We're going to read through those so we can keep up with them. And then we're going to go on. Okay. Let's see. Where were we? John Sislowski says, the language of that rant wasn't as bombastic as Razor Fist, but it was pretty good. More. I'm at an automatic handicap, sir, because I do not use profanity on my streams. Darking D says, please point out the Streamlabs link in the low bar. Yes, the Streamlabs link is in the description. You can click on it. Otherwise, you can type in the Justice Chat address that's listed up top. Jim Trammell says, you need to teach EVS's boomer butt how to use this too, so he stops losing 30% to YouTube. If EVS wants a course on it, I'm learning it on the fly, and I will happily help him out. Clay's roommate donated. He says, first PewDiePie, now Killstream. Why is the Wall Street Journal the Fields Police? I don't know. They used to be the only friendly publication to the right. Now they're just like everybody else. Darking D says, we're going to be here for the next 7 years, and I could not be happier. It might be, buddy. Tomb says, nope. I love you full homo now. Cammy Killer says, punished rackets. A man denied his law. Love the channel, buddy. Your videos and streams get me through my quantum homework. Keep it up. Oh, quantum physics, buddy, is such an area I'd love to talk about. If you're ever interested in talking about quantum physics, I've read Fabric of the Cosmos by Brian Greene, and it's a side interest of mine. So if you could ever help me with quantum physics as well as any other general theoretical physics, I'd love to talk about it. Unranked Chevron says, you have to admit that the motion to dismiss on the grounds that plaintiff is an a-hole is a pretty novel strategy. Yeah, I guess so. Great Loner says, good, let the hate flow through you. And finally, we've got a couple more super chats on the YouTube format. We've got, let's see, from Plum Logan says, you son of a motherless goat. David Cook says, your rage has aroused me. No homo though, lol. Love the stream. Preach, brother. Midnight in Exile. I've never been more in love in my life. Rackets. We have some things to talk about. Also, Tech Force. Tech Force. Yeah, let's talk about Tech Force sometime soon. Tanu Bojangles says, a defender of women, a parasite of human sympathy and ideals. Tranquil Blue says, this is the content I live for. Thanks, Sir Rackets. Woke Center Left says, thanks for making sense of this legal nonsense to us plebs. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And I do this not because I am special in any sort of way, but only because I happen to have spent a bunch of money going to school for it, and don't, wish that upon anybody else in this life unless they really want it. One bite of cereal. We've got cereal. We've got whiskey. Hessian says, hey, Rackets, sweet cereal and rye whiskey. I don't know about that. Hey, Rackets, you finally christened your Streamlabs. Congrats. I can finally throw some money on you. Minimum $2. Yeah, I have the minimum at $2. I don't know why. It's a work in progress. If that needs to change, let me know. But we're gonna work with it and grow. It's new turf for me. So give me feedback, and I want to create a product that you guys like. Next, Yellow Flash Comics. Wall Street Journal is the bundle of sticks newspaper. The biggest bundle of sticks that should properly be lit on fire. It needs to go. All right, back to the document. Factual background. Mark Waid has no connection to Texas. Thank God for Texas, right? They would throw him out, except if he just teleported himself into Austin. Hopefully his plane would crash at the border if he ever tried to go there. Mr. Waid is a citizen of California. Shocker. And lives in Santa Monica. Oh, man. Oh. And guys, you can find these public documents. I would encourage you to look up where Waid lives. Just look it up. It's a building. You can see the Google Street View of it. Go check it out. Right near the coast. Probably costs a fortune. That's from the declaration of Mark Waid attached as Exhibit A, paragraph 3. He works from California as a freelance author of comics books. Mr. Waid does not maintain any agents for service of process in the state of Texas. So, he was served with the summons and complaint at his home in California. So, what does that have to do with personal jurisdiction? You can serve a federal complaint anywhere that is proper under the rules, and serving someone in person is proper under the rules. It doesn't matter if they're on the moon. Why would you even bring that up? Mr. Waid has no interest in use of or possession of real property within Texas. And again, Texas doesn't want you. The people like you that go to Texas are worse than people who stay in California as cucks because you go to ruin. You go only to ruin. So thank God you've made one good decision and stayed away from one of the only pure and holy places left on this earth. He does not own or lease any personal property in Texas. Probably can't afford it. He does not have any bank accounts in Texas. He does not maintain any assets in Texas. He is not required to pay any income, business, or property taxes to Texas. No one's required to pay income taxes to Texas. You dummy. You're in Texas. The guy writing this, you know this. He has not used the Texas court system as a litigant other than as a defendant in this matter. He does not regularly do or solicit business in Texas, except for all the comic books you sell in Texas. Nor does he have any ongoing business relationships in Texas. He does not have a mailing address or telephone number in Texas. He lived in Texas in the early 1980s when he was young. He was born in 1962, but he has not lived in Texas since then. Oh, disgusting. Guys, I gotta stop the stream. I gotta go shower. This pile of trash lived in the same state as me in the 80s. Ugh. 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 I will be flagellating myself later. I feel like less of a human because of that. None of Mr. Waid's infrequent visits to Texas had anything to do with the allegations or people or entities identified in plaintiff's lawsuit. I'm seeing in the chat, Mr. Waid, that you do Comic Cons in Texas. Is that true? Did you omit the fact that you go and engage actively in business in Texas under the guise of a Comic Con, which is integral to the business and may be required under some of your writing contracts? Sounds like that's doing business in Texas. Do you sell books at those Comic Cons or commissioned works, or do you do autographs or anything else of value in Texas? Waid? Did you lie in your motion, Waid? Mr. Waid has worked in the comic book industry for more than 35 years. He has never had office space in Texas, and he does not recall any colleagues with whom he would work regularly living in Texas. Therefore, at the time of the alleged events in this case, including in 2017-2018, Mr. Waid had no connection to Texas. Cereal. Whiskey. I'm sleeping in tomorrow, y'all. All right, next section. The alleged contacts concerning Mr. Waid's connection to Texas are at most random, fortuitous, and attenuated. Plaintiff operates a YouTube channel called Diversity in Comics. Plaintiff broadcasts the channel across YouTube. It is not aimed at Texas. The plaintiff is in Texas. He claims over 88,000 followers of his channel. And 28 million views of his videos. Good job, you boy, Zach. As part of this marketing of the DNC channel, plaintiff is an active user of Twitter, currently with about 20,000 followers. Plaintiff's DNC Twitter page did identify, at times relevant to this lawsuit, and currently identifies New York, New York as his location. Maybe he was actually in New York, New York. Maybe people travel around. Maybe people move. Plaintiff alleges Mr. Waid interfered. Like, are you saying that Meyer is lying about his residence in Texas? Like, are you saying that? You still dialed a Texas area code. You can't get around the fact that you picked up a phone, you dialed a Texas area code, and then you talked to someone in Texas. On purpose. Plaintiff alleges Mr. Waid interfered with the publication of plaintiff's book, Jawbreakers Lost Souls. According to plaintiff's allegations, Jawbreakers Lost Souls would be, quote, a story about 5 ex-superheroes that comes out of retirement to protect a giant mutant ape from being exploited by a warlord. It is clearly not a book involving any story about Texas. What are you talking about? It doesn't have to be about Texas. If it was about Texas, it would change the analysis 0. Do I have to drink every time you say Texas? I'll die. Or one aimed only at Texas audiences, but rather would allegedly be a generally marketed book. Yes, with centralized damages in Texas where all the income would come in. According to press reports, those artists would be John Malin, Ethan Van Sciver, and Brett Smith. That's citing to Bleeding Cool. So if you needed to know how cucked this thing is, it cites to Bleeding Cool. Mr. Malin's Twitter profile page indicates he is in Michigan. Mr. Van Sciver's Twitter profile page indicates he is in New Jersey. And Mr. Smith's Twitter profile page indicates he is in Arizona. Interestingly, none of those people are suing you for a breach of contract or tortious interference because none of their contracts were breached. Because you're talking about an Indiegogo campaign, not about the fact that there was a separate publishing deal established after and exclusive of the Indiegogo campaign, which is being fulfilled separately. You disingenuous pervert. Dr. Nerdly says Waid at a signing in Texas in May. Tweeted it to you. Did you lie? Did you lie? Or did Waid lie to you? Is that the excuse you're going to hide behind? That Waid lied to you? We already know Waid's an unstable, ridiculous human being with no concept of reality. Did he cry on the phone to you like a giant baby? I can't believe I'm getting sued. All I wanted to do was defend women, so hopefully one day one will eventually have sex with me. And Zaid's like, yeah, I know. I wish that I do the same thing. I do the same thing. Oh my gosh. White Knights, y'all. Can we get PETA to stop throwing blood on fur coats and start throwing blood on white knights? Or can we get the radicalist blue-haired feminazis out there to collect their period blood in a bucket and instead of like wiping it on a crucifix, to throw it on the white knights who they don't need to advocate for them? Can we get that instead? Women out there, how much do you want the least manly, misshapen lumps of flesh that are Mark Waid and Zaid? How much do you want them to ride to your rescue and help out? I can't imagine wanting anything less than that. If you want that, I mean, I guess more power to you. No woman that I know would give any of these disgusting, misshapen dough balls the time of day. All right, back to it. Mr. Waid made 2 or 3 social media posts regarding plaintiff. These posts were not directed to Texas. Oh, they were though, because you made them regarding the plaintiff, who's in Texas, and his business partner, who's in Texas. But rather were posts accessible and viewable by all of his more than 5,000 Facebook friends and nearly 100,000 Twitter followers, regardless of where they were located. Tillip, yes, this guy is almost 60 and still single. And with good reason. With good reason. I can only imagine that he's built up an immunity to mace just by being near women. Plaintiff alleges Mr. Waid sent a tweet stating that he, Mr. Waid, had a call into Antarctic Press. Oh, did the plaintiff allege that? I mean, that's only reality. That's only what actually happened. Which plaintiff alleges, quote, on information and belief, triggered an onslaught by Waid's followers against Antarctic Press with calls and threats to Antarctic Press. What information and belief might the plaintiff have about that? Could it possibly be because he talked to the AP CEO and found out that there was a giant hate mob that harassed them at their other business and their thing, demanding that he listen to Mark Waid? I mean, could that be it? Could it be that they have information and belief about it? I hope you're ready for depositions, you idiots. If there is one wish I have, it would be to fly down to Texas and sit in the room and watch the deposition live. Oh, if I could have one thing on this earth, it would be to fly down to Texas when AP's CEO gets deposed and to sit there and watch it live. Oh, it'd be also great to sit in on Mark Waid's deposition. If God is too kind to me, that will somehow happen. Oh man, what I wouldn't give. What I wouldn't give to be there when the AP CEO talks about what happened to him and maybe cries a little and it's filmed. And you can watch Waid's attorneys go, oh, how do we deal with this? You better hope you win on a procedural motion, you gaggle of idiots. You better hope, because otherwise Meyer's going in raw and it's going to hurt and you're never going to be the same. And every time you're in proximity to another actual man, you're probably going to pucker up a little bit and cower in the corner because you know what's coming if you open your stupid mouth again. All right, back to it. Sorry, guys, there's going to be tangents on this. I'm done with it. I'm done with the politeness. Mr. Waid did not instruct or tell any of his followers or friends to call Antarctic Press. Yet you're going to sit here and try and convince everybody else on Earth that ZACK did just that by posting a post with Google accessible business phone numbers. You're going to say, I bet in the same breath, the same case for sure, that Meyer was encouraging harassment and you were just informing them. Right? Right? Aren't you going to do that, you disingenuous piece of lovely person? And he certainly did not instruct or tell them to make any threats to Antarctic Press. No, but he made plenty of his own. Plenty of his own, and you know it, because he said it. Oh, hey. Bleeding cool. When you watch this, you know what's going to be really funny? There were some early allegations. I covered your stupid article, by the way. Great job. Great job getting Waid to admit to unlawful conduct. And to do it with a giant smile and probably his hand in his pants and his other hand in the back of his pants, fisting away. Great job doing that. But some people alleged that maybe you lied about what he said. And you know what's going to be really funny? While you're out there championing Waid and Zaid, it's going to be really funny watching you open your mouth for the hairy sack that comes down when they accuse you of lying in your article and of misquoting Mr. Waid. And it'll be really funny to see your integrity on display when you either stand up and say that you accurately quoted Mr. Waid, or when you cuck like a little baby and you eat 500 pounds of edamame and you say, actually, I did misquote him. Whatever outcome is going to be just sweet succulent to the rest of us. You stupid idiot. You idiot. I mean, masterfully done. I fully believe every word you got Waid to say, and I can't wait to see him throw you under the bus. throw you under the shortest bus in history. I can't wait to see it because I really want to see if you have a shred of integrity or if you, for the cause, take the journalistic reaming that's coming to you. Vitamins and whiskey, baby. All right. Back to it. Plaintiff alleges Mr. Waid had one phone call with an owner of Antarctic Press. Mr. Waid did, in fact, have a single 15-minute phone call that he had with someone who identified himself as associated with or an owner of Arctic Press. Listen to the weasel language that's there. Mr. Waid had left a message at Antarctic Press and asked that someone return his call. Here it is. Here it is. I didn't know it was Antarctic Press calling me back. Later, Buff G Bob. Someone reportedly associated. I'm just the dumbest person alive. I didn't know I was being an idiot. I didn't treat them as if they were actually who they claimed to be. I took a call from a random person who claimed to be associated with Antarctic Press and just talked to them as if they were Antarctic Press because, I don't know, hashtag reasons? What are you talking about? All right. Mr. Waid did not know where the person was located during this phone conversation. You called them first, whether in Texas or somewhere else. The contract is still in Texas. The interference still occurred in Texas, even if the person was located next door. Okay, you made a call over a telecommunications network. That means that your call traveled in interstate commerce. You can't locate it to California. Probably traveled through Texas, especially if they have a Texas cell phone number, even when they called you back. I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to liken this to an old case where someone from a jurisdiction called someone else outside of that jurisdiction, but they initiated contact. Here you did. There's a big difference. And still, the contract you interfered with was in Texas. And you bragged so much about how you knew about Meyer, how much you knew about Meyer, and how much you knew about AP. Maybe shouldn't have tweeted all this out and given the other side all of the evidence. Mr. Waid had no knowledge that Antarctic Press had any operations in or connection to Texas. Lie. I promise you you're lying. And your attorney's lying too, and he knows it. Because your attorney is doing all sorts of unethical things, and he knows that too. Because your attorney's a scumbag. I'm being very clear. This is Zaid. Zaid knows exactly what he's doing. And he knows that it's that weird gray area in ethics, and he's banking on the fact that no one's going to report it. And Zaid, I will give you my solemn vow. I will not report your activity to the DC or Texas bar. It's not my place. I'm just a commentator. But you, sir, know that you're on thin ethical territory making this public, defaming all sorts of people, and threatening and intimidating people with frivolous legal action. You scumbag. I hope you peacefully die in bed very soon. Of natural causes. The world would be better for it if people like you were gone. Mr. Waid had no knowledge that Antarctic Press had any operations in or connection to Texas. Mr. Waid did not know where Antarctic Press was located, having retrieved only a phone number from industry contacts. It's got a Texas area code, I'm betting. And Mr. Waid, you have industry contacts. You know it's not actual knowledge, right? You know it's what a reasonable person knew or should have known. And the fact that AP is a small publisher located in Texas is publicly known. And any person doing any amount of diligence would know this. You know it. You're not writing it down in your motion Because I get it. You're zealously defending your client in the most dirtbag, underhanded way possible. Try defending them on truth like a real attorney. Except you know if you defend them on truth, you'll get raped harder than a child molester in prison. All right. We've got a couple super chats to go through. I'm at a good stopping point. Midnight in Exile says, get this man a sandwich. Cereal, unacceptable. Oh, this is special edition cereal, sir. This is Sugar Cookie Toast Crunch from General Mills. It's a special edition. Go buy it while it's in stores. I love it very much. Also, Tech Force. Pone Tang says, why do they cite Zack's character or why Waid did it? Even if Zack was possessed by Hitler's ghost, Waid still broke the law. Who cares what Zack said? They're trying to influence the judge's human side. Good luck. This is a former Marine, very old judge in Texas. I think you've got an uphill battle trying to invoke their sympathies towards the plight of underrepresented people and about mean words. Do you guys chat? Have you ever met a Marine, a former Marine, a current Marine, or any infantry person, Army, National Guard, any Navy midshipman or anything like that? Has Zack ever said anything even close to a 5-minute conversation with one of those people? Not a chance. Like, the idea that Zack's dark roast is some offensive manifesto. Like, seriously, spend 5 seconds in a barracks and you'll find far worse. Far worse. You've got a judge who's a former Marine. He's heard worse than cum dumpster, guys. Next, we've got Dr. Nerdly. Oh yeah, we covered that when Waid had a signing in Texas in May. Tweeted it to you. It was at the Houston Comic-Con. Sketch Therapy says, are they stealing tax revenue from Texas with tort? Absolutely. Absolutely. And Texas might be interested in keeping that revenue. Not income tax, though, because Texas is one of the few holdout states that does not charge income tax. They have a higher sales tax on everything else, as it should be. Consumption taxes only, not income taxes. Rodimus 2733. Hopefully that's a reference to Rodimus Prime. Thanks for all your videos and explaining it all. You're welcome, buddy. We've got a couple more super chats. Darking D says, Kansas is the greatest state in the union. Fight me. I will not fight you, sir. I love Texas with all my heart. I have good family in Kansas, and I was introduced to Kansas barbecue not too long ago. Great, great stuff. Any state with good barbecue gets to stay. All the others go over the wall. Tonberry Queen says, as an African-American woman, I find it super condescending that a-holes like Waid, a man who's clearly proven he doesn't give a poop about minorities in any way, uses the title of white knight for minorities to bully others for my sake. I hate him. Me too. And I hate everybody like him. Blue Samurai says, test message here. Check your email for a Waid, Zaid, Zack question, but please don't show my full name. Thanks for all the clarity you provide. Blue Samurai, if you want to, I don't know if you could tag me in the chat and just let me know if you want me to read that question online, or if I should just email you back. Foilidify says, I can answer your Wall Street Journal question. Journalists are now taught that they should, quote, make the world better. You should see the indoctrination going on in your universities right now. No, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it because I've never been suicidal in my life and I don't want to start. I don't want to start. All right. Let's get back to it. Mr. Waid did not know where Antarctic Press was located, having retrieved only a phone number from industry contacts. And Mr. Waid did not know where the person with whom he spoke lived, whether in Texas or elsewhere. Well, that's nice. That's nice. Unfortunately, they were located in Texas, and so was the transaction that you interfered with. So it doesn't really matter where they lived or what you knew about it. You could have found out. You could have asked them. Yeah. Carnut. The address given on AP's own site lists him as being located in Texas with a Texas phone number. Also on their About page, AP is a Texas-based company. Liars. Absolutely. And of course he's lying. Of course he's lying. Mr. Waid also did not know where plaintiff lived or was located. Mr. Waid did not know that plaintiff resided in Texas or had any connection at all to Texas. As noted, plaintiff's Twitter account indicates he is based in New York. I would wager that the plaintiff, or that the defendant, Mr. Waid, might not know anything because he's an idiot. Plaintiff's own words and conduct directed towards the world, not just Texas, have created substantial reason by people may not do business with him. This should be sanctionable. This should be sanctionable activity because you know that this isn't about this. And you know that this isn't a defense to tortious interference. And you know that your client has no defense based here and you're trying to prejudice a judge and you should be legally crucified for it and you should be paying ZACK's fees along with Waid. This is disgusting. During the one telephone call between Mr. Waid and Antarctic Press, as confirmed by Antarctic Press itself. No, you don't get to hide behind what someone who is not actually Antarctic Press, but a social media manager said. You don't get to do that, especially when our Antarctic Press initial tweet says something different, and that there might just be some evidence that is separate from that tweet that contradicts your whole theory. And the dumb thing is, you know it's there. You liar. You liar. Mr. Waid did not force or threaten Antarctic Press regarding whether to enter into business with plaintiff. His own words belie that because you know that inflated puffball of flesh without an ounce of muscle on him figures himself an industry mafioso. He said so himself. He's a defendant of minorities and women who have been traditionally underrepresented in the industry. And his status as a big swinging cock industry veteran of 35 years affords him all of the credibility that those poor darkies just can't find. Right, Waid? Right, you racist pile of trash? Right? Yeah, he knows. He called these people to pressure them. And he knows what he did, and he knows the impact of his words because he lives and dies on the sad reality that in 35 years he hasn't made any money, but all he's made is the ability to white knight. That's it. And that's what he masturbates to every night, and you know it. He's like, yes, I saved a woman or a minority today. He just rails himself away in a bathtub. That's all he has in this world. He talks about how I'm not a millionaire. You should be, you idiot. You've drawn for the biggest publication of comics with the biggest characters on Earth. You've done some of the most well-regarded work. Why aren't you a millionaire? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You failure of a man. Happened into some of the best gigs you could possibly find and couldn't negotiate your way into $1 million in 2018? My goodness, children are making millions of dollars with way less experience, credibility, and talent than you. What failure are you that all you have to go to is that you can white knight for people who don't want you? You pathetic, weak man. You excuse for a man, I should say. Dear Lord, I would be embarrassed to be you. If I had half of the ability and contacts that you had and am not a millionaire still by 60, I'd look for the only noose that could hold my fat, misshapen self. That's what I would do. I'm not advocating you do it. I hope you don't ever commit suicide. Suicide's a serious thing. You should not do it. You should sit around and wallow in shame for the rest of your life at what a failure you have made of the opportunity that you've been given. Because all the women and minorities that you champion, if they had half the opportunities and connections that you had, they would be running companies, laughing at how much money you don't have and they do. Because you are a worthless hack. If you couldn't make $1 million with all the opportunity you've had by now. By now. Oh my goodness. You're just a failure. All right. Let's see. TLDR, Wade's defense is, I'm sorry, it's my first day. Yep. No more BS, please. Thank you for the donation. There's no message attached. And let's see. Ben Cheever says, haha, this is amazing. I love this. Zach was a Marine as well. F Mark Waid, F Mark Zaid. May they get what they deserve. Blue Samurai said, yes, please read the question online. I'm awake. It has some detail. I'm not in the Google chat because I'm not a Google user. I filter their tracking plus VPN, etc. Okay, let me pull up that. Wait, I can do it on my phone. I apologize. We're getting there. I will read it absolutely. One moment, please. Bear with me, y'all. Okay. All right. So this is from Blue Samurai. Thank you so much for the donations. Let's read what he's got to say. I'm not going to read his name. Hold on. Let me skim this real quick. Okay, here we go. Side note first. Mandy Bombard of Bombard's Body Language. Yeah, I've been watching that recently. Is one of many people who have observed how the worst people, the most toxic people, will somehow find each other and become teammates or drama partners, rhetorically asking how the heck did Waid find Zaid and Zaid find other scumbags anywhere in Texas? Because rats can smell each other. Note 2, Meyer lived in New York for a time over the summer. He previously lived in Texas. As you know, it's irrelevant if RCM was in New York City when all this happened. Phone call was answered in Texas by the one party to the contract who was in Texas for certain. First question, definition of tortious interference. Does tortious interference require successful altering of the relationship between the two parties by the third party? Yes. Yes, it does require a breach of contract to occur. It seems logical that it would, or is it mere effort of the crime itself, successful or not? No, this is actual breach must occur. Second question, according to one of the articles you read in your initial RCM versus Waid video, Waid claimed that AP told him on the phone that AP was already going to dump jawbreakers. That is, Waid left a message and later got the AP man in question on the phone and was told this. There may have been a tweet from AP to this effect later on, but the employee who wrote that tweet was somehow unreliable or was not the actual decision maker. Let me dispel this immediately. Knox versus Taylor is a still good law case from the Supreme Court of Texas. In that case, the breaching party said that they were already really probably going to break their contract. They had a right to break their contract. That's important as well. They had a right to back out of the contract. Someone call it an exit clause. They had an exit clause in their contract, and they said, this information we received from the defendant was just, quote, icing on the cake. So they were already going to do it. Defendant's icing on the cake. The Texas standard is, at the time of the alleged interference, was the contract breached yet? The answer is no. Then tortious interference still holds. It still holds. I'm sorry that you were in Texas, and if you want to know why they're trying to get this thrown out of Texas, this is why. Tortious interference holds, even it's the tiniest amount that pushes them over the edge to breach the contract, even if they have every legal right to breach the contract, and even if they were already planning to do it but hadn't done it yet. Waid is screwed under all existing Texas precedent. They would have to overturn existing Texas law for Waid to win on the merits of the case based on the facts as we know them. I can't stress that enough. It's still possible. A judge can always make a wrong decision. They could still win. But under the facts as we know them, under the law as it stands in Texas, Meyer wins this case, eyes closed. Period. No matter what some dumb idiot like Jamal Eigel or any other internet non-attorney tells you, let me make it clear one more time. On the facts and the law, on a plain, unbiased read, Meyer wins hands down. On an unbiased read, Meyer wins without even trying. Now, that doesn't mean Meyer wins. Judges make bad decisions. Judges have bad days. Juries have bad days. Juries make bad decisions. The people element is everything in a case. But under the facts and law, Meyer wins. And that's not my bias. My bias is that Meyer should win and Waid should be thrown into the sea. Okay? That's my bias. My non-bias is that Meyer wins under any sober, somber analysis of facts and law in this case, as we understand it. Unless there's some bombshell hiding where Meyer breached the contract or something like that. So, just to be clear. I hope that answers your question. You've got a couple other things that I think my answer kind of summarized, but please stop mixing your whiskey with cereal milk. I will not do such a thing, sir. Don't you tell me what to do. You're not my daddy. But I hope that helps. Okay. Let's see. In fact, by the time Mr. Waid had spoken to Antarctic Press, the publisher indicated it had already decided to sever ties with plaintiff because it had learned more about his conduct and unfavorable reputation. Sure they did. Was it because after your post that a bunch of little SJW ants crawled up into every orifice they could and irritated and bit at that guy and forced him out of it? Is that why? Is it because they were threatening their other business that's unrelated to comics? You coward. The representative told Mr. Waid that after learning more about plaintiff, Antarctic Press found plaintiff's conduct indefensible. Mr. Waid did not tell or even ask Antarctic Press to not publish Jawbreakers. In public tweets, Antarctic Press stated, facts. Yeah, who is this? You don't know who you're even talking to on the phone, Mark Waid, right? You're the dumbest idiot on the planet who doesn't even know who he's talking to, but you're going to take a public tweet from a social media manager as that's the be-all, end-all, right? Did you include both of it? Did you include both of their tweets? I bet you didn't, did you? Let's see. Mark Waid put a call into our office. Staff took a message and told Mr. Waid our publisher would be informed. Nobody at AP felt threatened in any way by Mr. Waid's call. Gee, I don't know. If they did feel threatened, do you think they would say they were threatened? If you have the credibility to threaten a publisher and you have a bunch of little manlets running after you, the little Rainbow Brigade chasing you around saying, we'll drag the publisher. You think they're going to dare come out and say that Mark Waid, industry legend, intimidated them on a phone call? No, it's just friendly. It's just friendly. They weren't sweating bullets at all. They weren't terrified of the fact that someone who can end careers was calling them to threaten their hobby. Right? That's the story you're going with. We have been bullied. We have not been bullied into a decision by any comics pro. Sure. Mark Waid did not bully anyone at our company, though he did call and express concern. Mark shed more light on the situation, and other factors came into play that do not involve any staff or freelancers at any other company that led us to our decision. Listen to the weaseling in that statement. That is the most PR workshopped statement they could have possibly made on the issue. Nobody at all anywhere told us about this except for some people who did, but they weren't anybody important. Right? That's what happened. In other public tweets, Antarctic Press stated, ultimately, some of our staff and freelancers were uncomfortable. You literally just said that the factors came into play that do not involve any staff or freelancers at any other company. So only freelancers at your own company suddenly became aware of this and suddenly cared. What'd you do? Have a conference call? Tell all your freelancers about the work? Or were the freelancers responding to Waid? Which was it? Once more light was shed on the creator. We had to make a choice we could live with. We have other creators who are right and left who have not made personal attacks. They are the creators we decided to work with. Did they stick by you, AP? Did those creators stick by you? ZACK won't criticize you, but there's a little bit of blame to go to you. I hope you do right in this lawsuit. I really do. Because if you don't do right in this lawsuit, your soul's going to feel it. And I know your soul's going to feel it because you cried on the phone to Meyer. So I know you've got one. And if you maintain this charade about all this stuff and you stand by people who didn't stand by you, it's going to stain you, buddy. It's going to stain you. As indicated by Antarctic Press's tweets, plaintiff had carved out a negative reputation among many in the industry and in the general public as someone intolerant of minorities and women well before any of the events alleged in this lawsuit involving Mr. Waid, which allegedly occurred in May 2018. Plaintiff derisively calls people who support roles for minorities, women in the LGBT community, SJWs, or social justice warriors. Lie. He calls social justice warriors, and I think we've moved on to NPC now, with your pre-programmed responses and your lack of ability to engage in any sort of thought. For example, as one article from April 2018 reports, note prior to these events, prior to the statements from AP about still supporting Meyer in light of all this, with quotes from plaintiff himself. Plaintiff is engaging with the article's author titles a harassment campaign. What article is this? Oh, it's from the Daily Beast and Bleeding Cool. Yeah, they gave him a fair take on that interview. Daily Beast and Bleeding Cool. Oh, yeah. If I can get me some unbiased, non-SJW journalism, I turn right to the Daily Beast and soy-sucking vacuum cleaner Bleeding Cool. Titles a harassment campaign. Well, if a social justice journalist titles it that way, that must be what it is. Meyer jumped into the fray with his YouTube channel. His videos, rambling, unscripted, often 20 to 30 minutes long. ZACK, 20 to 30 minutes? How dare you take so much time, sir? Are a hodgepodge of comics reviews, analysis, and gossip regarding endless online battles. He hammered his theme home in every entry, that the failures of the comics industry were the direct result of hiring diverse talent, that they needed to be driven out. That's not a very charitable representation of what he said. One of the things about social justice warriors, this is a quote of your boy, is that they get a job because of surface qualities. Notice, not minorities and women get a job because of surface qualities. Social justice warriors, which is a specific subset of blue-haired babies that gets a job based on surface qualities. Being a woman, being black, being gay, being trans. Yes, social justice warriors leverage their skin or status to get jobs. That's not all blacks, all women, all gays, or all trans. That's social justice warriors. The distinction is in the sentence. Both Meyer's YouTube and Twitter accounts rapidly became a repository for a constant stream of personal attacks and dog whistles. Dog whistles are those things that aren't attacks, but get read as attacks by SJWs who don't have brains. That's what a dog whistle is. Like when I say, man, I really want apple pie. And they're like, look at the white supremacy coming off of him. He only eats apple pie. I don't know. I don't know if apple pie is a white racist thing. I'm sure it is. He fixates on the physical appearance of female creators he dislikes. That's because they're ugly. Let's be honest. They're ugly. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they're ugly. Lots of ugly people out there. Uggos all over the place. And guys, women in the nerd community have a habit of being ugly. Some of them really are hideous. It's not a crime, and it's not a defense to say that Meyer calling people a bunch of fat, hairy armpit slobs is like some sort of indictment of him. It's not. It's not. He retweeted memes. I take it all back. I just learned, guys, that ZACK retweeted memes mocking certain creators as autistic retards, along with images of himself slapping them. Oh my goodness, that does it. ZACK, I disavow you in every single moment of your life. How dare you retweet a meme? How dare you retweet someone else's thing that you find funny? Oh my God. You know that's the Batman tweet, right? That's the Batman tweet they're talking about. They're complaining about the Batman meme. Good Lord. Hopefully they can roll up a fat Uggo in flour and have sex with her later tonight or something. I don't even know. I don't know what virtue signaling they're hoping to get. Meyer's main achievement seems to be making life miserable for the trans creators. Yeah, that's his main achievement. Not like a $480,000 GoFundMe on his first comic ever. His main achievement seems to be making life miserable for trans creators and other marginalized figures who bear the brunt of the harassment. Oh my goodness gracious. That's from Comicsgate. How an anti-diversity... Look at this. Look at the article title. This is like someone... Oh my gosh. It's like someone interviewing Jared Taylor and having the title, Frothing Nazi speaks about how much he hates the blacks, as the journalistic piece, and then quoting that as some sort of evidence of what Jared Taylor said. And I don't even like Jared Taylor. But I mean, that's what they're doing here. It's insane. Hashtag Comicsgate. How an anti-diversity harassment campaign in comics got ugly and profitable. As if your prefatory statement didn't lay out that it was already ugly by mischaracterization. Oh my goodness. Guys, we're going to have to start hanging journalists in the streets at this point if this is what we're getting for journalism. Noting plaintiff's YouTube channel Diversity in Comics is famed for, quote, throwing constant and repeated gratuitously offensive insults at anyone involved with progressive storylines. No, that's an opinion. That's not what it's actually famed for. Because he doesn't do that in the vast majority of his videos. Example 9, the Comicsgate movement isn't defending free speech, it's suppressing it. From the Washington Post. Yeah, Comicsgate is suppressing free speech by saying, hey, we're going to walk over here and make our own comics and make fun of you guys. You do what you do, we'll do what we do. That's suppressing speech. In communist Comicsgate, speech suppress you, comrade. I mean, what are we talking about? Richard C. Meyer, who uses the ironic Twitter and YouTube handle Diversity in Comics, became a ringleader of Comicsgate, which rallied around the argument that female, people of color, and LGBT characters and creators were ruining comic books. Their goal has been to make comics less welcoming to people who aren't white and male. Hey, Comicsgate, is that your goal? Is it to make comics less welcoming to people who aren't white and male? Is that what you do on the average day? That's what you do, apparently. Exemplifying his uncompromising views against women, he became angry over a group of women in the comics industry who posted themselves on social media celebrating a female colleague over milkshakes. The milkshake crew particularly raised his ire. Quote, "They obviously seem to not be qualified. They can't spot basic typos. They can't notice major plot holes. They antagonize the fans." Look at how he insulted women by pointing out specific technical deficiencies in the work that particular women produce. That's him clearly saying women are incapable. What is this? Plaintiff's attacks on those in the comics industry are astonishing. For example, he published a YouTube program in November 2017 in which he baselessly suggested, through graphically disgusting language, that the accomplishments of various specific women were simply because of sex. Yeah, it's called jokes and opinions. It's how we hyperbolically suggest that a particular person didn't get to the position they're on by their merit. Like when I hyperbolically suggest that Mark Zaid got to be a popular attorney by diddling the anuses of various representatives in Congress and White House staffers and gargling their testicles. Like if I say that Mark Zaid's status as an attorney and his ability to negotiate with people hyperbolically comes from his taste for testicle hair on the back of his tongue, that would be a hyperbolic joke talking about how I don't think he has proper credentials as a professional to engage in the work that he's done, and his value is overstated. It's a hyperbolic statement, a joke, rhetorical hyperbole if you want to listen to the Texas court's description of what that statement is. I hope that sweaty nutsack tastes great. I hope it does. But that's a hyperbolic joke about a lack of technical proficiency because we can't think of any other way that these people would rise to the level that they're at. It's not actually a comment on their factual qualifications. It's a comment on their perceived inability to do literally anything right. And if you disingenuously attempt to misunderstand that, you deserve all the testicles you have gargled in your career and all the sweat that has dripped onto your tonsils from it. All right. Let's moving on. This is some soggy cereal, y'all. I'm not even gonna lie. Still delicious. All right. Plaintiff's attack on those in the comics industry are astonishing. For example, he published a YouTube program in November 2017. Wait a minute. Oh, no. In which he basically suggested, through graphically disgusting language, that the accomplishments of various specific women were simply because of sex, and he defamed Mr. Waid, this is a lie, and others in the industry as either pedophiles or as having psychological problems. I'm pretty sure he said, you look like a pedophile, Mr. Waid, who looks like a pedophile, represented by Mr. Zaid, who not only looks like a pedophile, but his YouTube like history looks like that of a pedophile. I'm not saying you're a pedophile. I have no factual basis for your pedophilia. I can't possibly say that you're a pedophile and you like to diddle children. I have no knowledge of your disgusting interactions with children. But what I can say is Mark Waid being 60, single, and white knighting vociferously all over the planet looks like a pedophile. And I can say that Mark Zaid's YouTube history looks like that of a pedophile. And I, by the way, have defended the logical possibilities of your YouTube history. I've said you maybe have a wife or a daughter or son or a niece or nephew who like those videos of young Disney girls. Young attractive Disney girls, I think was the title of one of the videos. Like, I don't know if you liked them on your account or if someone else went on your account and liked them. I think it's logical that you didn't. I think it's probably likely that you gave it to some young relative of yours who clicked on the thumbs up, or it was clicked accidentally, or you were doing case research. All sorts of reasons to why your YouTube history looks like the same YouTube history as a pedophile. But your YouTube history looks like that of a pedophile. I don't think you're a pedophile. I don't think so at all. Let me be on the record clear about this. I don't think Mark Zaid is a pedophile. But his YouTube history kind of looks like a pedophile's YouTube history. That's weird. You should fix it. Like, just go unlike those videos or make your YouTube history private or something. Like you're a professional human being. Again, I don't think either of these people are pedophiles. I have no factual information to back it up. None. I'm not even asserting as a joke that they're pedophiles. I'm just explaining why some people might say you look like a pedophile, and why saying you look like a pedophile, in my opinion, would be not an actionable statement. Again, that rhetorical hyperbole, Texas is fond of it. Texas is fond of it. And you guys are in political discourse. I actually think this is a weakness in Meyer's defamation claim too. Because Texas lets you do rhetorical hyperbole. So it lets you say they look like a pedophile. Because you look like a pedophile. I don't know. Not my fault. Blame God. Blame your lack of exercise. I don't care. Blame the fact that you sit and eat soybeans all day. I don't know. Fix it. That's your fault. All right. Anyway. Where were we? Having psychological problems. Well, that's true. Most of them are just clinically low IQ. Meyer called one Marvel editor a cum dumpster. No. Is she factually a dumpster that receives cum? Because that would be a defamatory statement. A factual dumpster that receives cum. Are we supposed to imagine that that's what Meyer was saying? That she is factually a dumpster and a receptacle for human semen? Or I guess it doesn't have to be human. It doesn't specify. Is that what we're going with here? Accuse various female writers of sucking their way into the industry. Oh, heaven forbid. Heaven forbid you accuse someone of that. And mused which famous creators were pedophiles or had psychological problems. Good. We need more of it. We need more honesty out there. You're the one talking about a free speech defense. You're the one talking about a free speech defense. How dare he call a woman a cum dumpster and my client a pedo? My client has only diddled 4 children today. All right. Exhibit 2, detailing plaintiff's offensive name-calling on YouTube. Offensive name-calling. It's offensive name-calling. By the way, calling people racist, Nazis, all of that, also offensive. You disingenuous garbage heap of an attorney. Comparing people to bombers and shooters at synagogues, that is also offensive. And I would protect it with my life. Your ability to say it. Your ability to sneer and lie behind a keyboard, you manlet. You tiny little thing. I want you to go to a bar and say that to someone just so they can put their fist through the back of your little red-headed afro. Man, I would love it. Oh my gosh. Oh. Okay. Plaintiff does not limit the broadcasting of his divisive views over YouTube. He also broadcasts them to the world through Twitter. So does your client. He has used Twitter to broadcast generally to the world such horrific musings as, all right, ZACK's greatest hits, prepared at the expense of Mark Waid. Guys, if you ever wanted ZACK's funniest jokes, this is how these lawsuits always work. Some dopey paralegal or junior attorney gets paid $300, $400 an hour to go through someone's Twitter, find their funniest jokes, and put them in a legal document so we can read them. Thank you to you poor faceless assistant who had to do that. Can anyone name me a female comic book writer in American comics who is actually a woman, not SJW, doesn't insult or attack customers, at least moderate in talent? Zach, that wasn't very funny though. I built that up. I built that joke up for you, Meyer. That wasn't that funny. Calling someone a retard who had expressed the view that there are different kinds of artists to do different kinds of art. Why didn't you quote the whole tweet? You quote the whole tweet. This is your chance to shine. The DC Writers Workshop had only 8 people in it. And one was trans and another was non-binary. This isn't business, ... which hires on merit. Oh, italics. You can tell this is their opinion of the punchline. This is a modern day carnival. See the bearded lady, see the dog boy. Oh, look at it. Look at the offensive words that Meyer tweeted. Very offensive. How dare you? Spend some time in the gulag, Meyer. Guys, there's no way we're getting through this whole document tonight. This is literally a picture of the end of Marvel. Italics. So again, a woman with no comic book experience hired for her plumbing, a minstrel show diva. How dare he suggest that someone has no comic book experience being hired for some reason other than comic book experience? Why would he even be allowed to live after having that opinion? A woman was hired for an editor position even though she has the resume of a summer intern because boobs. I mean, yeah, a woman. What was her name? Why'd you bracket it out? Because it wasn't a woman, it was this woman. He referred to well-known author Ta-Nehisi Coates as a race hustler. How dare you? How dare you suggest someone who peddles in racial politics be a race hustler? How dare you, good sir? Mark Zaid, you're a race hustler. So is Mark Waid. You guys are race hustlers. Sue me over it. Guys, I've talked about this before. I'm actually literally allergic to increase in body temperature, which comes from elevated anger. So if you see me scratching my head or the back of my neck, I'm kind of breaking out in anger allergy. And that's not even a joke. I'm not going to read the... Oh, here we go. Here's his footnote. Those involved in Comicsgate and generally the alt-right political movement, look at the guilt by association, have aggressively used Twitter and YouTube to spread their messages and go after those viewed as opponents. You are disgusting. CEG, the new troll, how bots and puppets make internet outrage seem louder than it is. From Vox. Oh yes, Vox. Unbiased, non-LGBT suckling Vox. Yeah, there you go. Jeez, Pete. Let me read a couple of these chats. All right. Sketch Therapy says Zach made $524,337 on 2 books. Should be double that. Yeah. Continue to support your boy Zach. Rhino4563 says, here's for a shot of whiskey, sir. Glug, glug, glug. Thanks, buddy. Tranquil Blue says, suicide's painless. It staves off Nick Rekieta. George E says, whoops, Zaid's making statements that sound unrelated to the case or is contradictory. He must know these lies and not in Texas BS doesn't carry weight. What kind of bombshell could actually overturn this? That Zach saying he pulled out. You know, some other indication of what happened to the contract than AP backing out after Wade's call. That's what it would take. Sketch Therapy says, despite showing receipts as plaintiff's customer, counsel to defendant left a series of insults to me on a public account, leaving plaintiff's customer to be targeted by those under defendant's influence. Can I help? Buddy, you can help by just keep doing what you're doing, man. Talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about this stuff. Spread the word. Spread support for Zach. Spread support for Comicsgate. Sell books. Guys, if you want to beat them, you just sell books. Keep selling books. That's how you win. Ultimately. Yes, Zach needs to take a stand. Yes, I'm happy he did it. Yes, he deserves to win this lawsuit. Most of this battle will be fought out of court for Comicsgate's soul, and it will be done by selling books. Include more and more people into your movement. Find more books. Find ways to promote the people that Ethan doesn't have time to promote. Start another show. Run Comicsgate shows 24 hours a day promoting books and selling books. Period. That's how you win. That's how you live and survive. Second, that's how you win. Finally, Ace of Spades says, how does saying things on the internet that Waid, Zaid don't approve of absolve Waid from violating contract-related law? That's a mystery to everybody, including the courts of Texas. So, yeah, there you go. All right, next is from King KDI. He says, in UK, good morning from here. Twitter is not used as a POA, proof of address. Why is this dismissal quoting Twitter addresses? Is there precedence for it to be used as proof in U.S. courts? No money to Google. Screw these guys. No, they're trying to make a weak claim that his reasonable knowledge was that he was located in New York, as if that would somehow help him. It doesn't. Darking D says, if apple pie isn't a white supremacist symbol, it will be after I get back from /poll. Let's do it. Let's do it. Abadisi says, I got into comics because of Zach and I'm black. He must be the worst white supremacist. Yeah, absolutely. If you notice something, all of the racists that are routinely lambasted as racists tend to be the worst at it. And people who are calling them racist tend to be the worst racists. Waid intimidates 2 Asian American publishers. He has a violent fit while in a professional relationship with an African American comic shop owner, to the point where she and her husband need to call the police. Like, it's nonsense. Nonsense. Also believes they need rescuing from him because he's #SoWhite. Let's see. Ben Cheevers says he doesn't refer to it as the dark roast or else it might read charitably. The twisting and outright lying here is ridiculous. What a disgrace. And absolutely, everybody listening to the dark roast knew that it was a joke. Darking D donated. He said, professional human being is unreasonably funny phrase to me. That's just because it's late at night. Next is, it's 1 to 4 in the morning and 800 people are watching this. The comics industry strongly underestimates how much the fans are sick of their antics. Chloe Claire. Hey, thank you, Chloe Claire. Nick, you're the defender of truth. Thank you so much. Wow. What I very, very much appreciate you being in the stream. And again, appreciate you supporting Zach. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're doing the Lord's work, and you're doing Comicsgate's work. We need more people like you out there. So thank you for that. Next. All right. As plaintiff's own allegations admit, by late 2017, media reports began to emerge characterizing Mr. Meyer as a bigot, racist, and part of a group that promotes white supremacy. Yeah, media reports began to emerge falsely, in brackets, characterizing him as such. Given his persistent attacks on others, many in the comic book world have elected not to associate with plaintiff. So, AP elected to associate with plaintiff. When, prior to Mr. Waid's call with Antarctic Press, one journalist told an owner of Antarctic Press about some of plaintiff's comments, for example, that owner seemed shocked and said he was going to have a serious think about the issue. Yeah, and after that, he said, "We know we're doing the right thing by publishing your book." Why'd you leave that out, you liar? Representatives of comic book stores from all over the world had unilaterally, without any input or influence from Mr. Waid, decided not to carry plaintiff's book. No. Like a bunch of pimple-faced fatzos on Facebook decided not to because they didn't have to actually make that decision yet. And we'll see what happens when AP sends that book to Diamond. We'll see what happens then when Diamond has inventory that it has to get rid of. And we'll see how those little chumps deal with Diamond saying, "We got to sell this book. We're going to send it to your store." And who cares? Because AP still decided to do business. And even after all this, affirmed the contract publicly. But you're not going to say that, are you? You lying coward. Why not tell the truth in your motion? Why not tell the truth in your pleadings? Why won't you do that? Zealously representing people with the truth. You're a good attorney, Zaid. Find a different way to win. Or maybe your client can't. And you should settle, because you should advise your client instead of dick-sucking your own ego, you inflated-headed pile of trash. But now you're emotionally invested in this, which is why you're unfit to represent Waid, because you're going to cost Waid hundreds of thousands of dollars to lose because of your ego. And because of you bringing this into the public in a ethically questionable manner. It's not your job to do it. You're supposed to try this in court, not in public with your giant Twitter fan base. Rule 3.6, you disgusting, unethical sack of trash. Next. Given his persistent attacks on others, many in the... Oh, wait. Sorry. Representatives of comic... Okay, I'm back to where I already read. A number of comic book retailers took it upon themselves to state they wouldn't be carrying plaintiff's book. Good. Run out of business. No one needs you. There was much concern regarding some of Meyer's statements and the actions of his followers. Plaintiff somehow obtained screenshots of a private Facebook chat. Maybe because the store owners in question involved with that, who didn't agree, felt like this was probably wrong. And it was. And you know it. And he publicly disclosed the names of those who elected not to carry his book. Good. 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 Aren't you for that? Aren't you for that, you inconsistent, disingenuous piece of trash? Of course you're for this. Of course you're for it. You've always been for naming names. You've always been for it. All of you disgusting little rats have been for naming names. So what does he do? He publishes their own words. Why did they say them if they don't want them published? They thought they were insulated. They thought they were among friends. They thought they could violate 100 years of antitrust law. They thought they could violate 100 years of anti-competitive practices because a private group on Facebook. They didn't even consider, these dumb people didn't even consider the fact that not everyone agreed with them and might be like, hey, this isn't okay. This isn't okay. We're trying to sell comic books, not drag people, not drag publishers, not threaten to not sell other people's books because a publisher published one that you disagree with. You disgusting people deserve to be drug out of business. Give it to someone who will make money and make jobs. I hope you all starve because your businesses run out, you fail like the failures that you are, and you die alone. Starving in the streets. Jeez. All right. Okay. All right. Let me get back to where we were. Plaintiffs somehow obtained screenshots of a private Facebook chat among those store owners, publicly disclosed the names of those who elected not to carry his book. In publicly divulging a screenshot showing the identities of people associated with these stores, plaintiff declared, okay, get ready. Here comes screenshots of the retailers colluding to prevent customers from buying Jawbreaker's Lost Souls in comic book shops. It's from a private Facebook group for retailers titled Final Order Cutoff. Isn't your defense the fact that your fat, misshapen pile of paste is telling the truth about Meyer? How are you going to sit here and pontificate and moralize about how Meyer is telling the truth and that's just not fair? Right? What are you thinking? The funny thing is, Meyer's defense Meyer's prosecution of this fully anticipates you telling the truth. It's still illegal in Texas. So rather than identifying the stores that had decided to carry plaintiff's book, he doesn't have to. It's all of the other ones. All of the ones who didn't cuck up. You name the short list. In an apparent invitation to his followers to swarm after those stores in unrelenting and unprovoked attacks, in the same freaking breath, you said that Waid didn't do this very thing. You lying, disingenuous coward. You cuckathon. You pile of dildos. I don't know what to call you. You cum dumpster. Since that so offends you. You cum receptacle. You, in the same document, say that Waid did not invite his followers by simply publishing truthful information. When Meyer does the same thing, you accuse him of inviting harassment? You are disgusting. You're disgusting. Learn how to attorney. Learn how to lawyer. Learn how to fight a case without disingenuous lies. You unethical sack of garbage. Indeed, after plaintiff's tweet, stores suddenly experienced offensive social media messages. Freedom of speech doesn't have freedom from consequences. Right, you vaginas? Call my boss, by the way. Tell him to fire me. See how that goes for you. Indeed, offensive social had personal social media accounts targeted. They're public social media accounts. You can't target them. And saw a flood of 1-star reviews. Oh my God, customers are dissatisfied with your decisions and they reviewed it? Whatever are you going to do? See also, Exhibit 10. Comicsgate leader is suing Marvel/DC writer for defamation. From the Daily Dot. Jawbreakers was initially meant to be published by Antarctic Press, small indie publisher, but they dropped it following backlash from the comics community. Several retailers promised to boycott the comic if it came out. Several. There are 2,100 comic shops in the U.S. My understanding is like 7 made a vow to not publish it, and some of those were in the UK. You're really going to blow that up? Several retailers? Eat glass. Several retailers said they had found themselves the victims of harassment, prompting Antarctic to decide not to publish Jawbreakers. Yeah, that's a disingenuous read of what happened, and you know it. It is this reputation as someone against non-white, non-straight, and female members of the comic book world. Oh my gosh. Meyer, I wish you would just publish pictures of your children to the court under a private seal, of course. Ask for confidentiality and be like, look at my non-white children. Look at them. Are you serious? That caused Mr. Waid to have legitimate concerns about plaintiff. Why would Mr. Waid, the whitest, pastiest, redheaded, no-souled person on the planet, have any concern? Meyer should be licking the shaft of Waid constantly because he's so anti-black that he must suckle at the penis of the whites. That's all I can figure from this stupid motion. That he hates black people so much that he would only support the guy who walks outside and sunburns to death without SPF 600 on. My goodness gracious. What would Waid have a legitimate concern about? He's the whitest person I've ever seen. Even with his cuck white soy smile. Get some diversity in your life, Waid. I bet black people run from you. Because they're like, oh my gosh, look at that unfunny person. Look at that soulless hack. Look at that giant heap of misshapen, uncolored Play-Doh. I bet they run in droves because you look so uninteresting that it's actually physically present. When I look at you, I am nothing but bored. That's how white you are. It's embarrassing. You might as well be albino and get hacked up by an African warlord and your skin sold for some sort of witch doctor treatment. That's how pasty you are. What are you concerned about from Meyer? If he's such a white supremacist, he's probably buying thousands of your books and distributing them to all of the whites who follow him. Good Lord. Get some reality in your life. Go meet a black person. Why don't you do that? Instead of pretending to like them on Twitter. Not involving anything in Texas. Plaintiff's campaign against diversity is not aimed at Texas. Rather, his target is the comic book industry as a whole. He appears to equally abhor the role of women or a minority, whether in Texas, California, or somewhere else. Maybe he equally abhors the lack of talent displayed by these people. Not their skin color and not their gender. Argument and authorities. This should be rich. This should be rich. C.A. Cunningham says, shame about the allergies. You are really funny when you get angry. Oh, it's worth every second of itching that will follow. And it'll probably be about an hour and a half. Green Adrenaline 6405 says, look up any picture of Dr. Robotnik, and that's Waid. Paul Godin says, in your opinion, will it be better overall to go to trial and ZACK wins or for ZACK to settle out of court? What would be the ramifications in your own humble opinion for both scenarios? That I will not state my opinion of what would be better because the only two people on earth situated to answer that question are ZACK and his attorney. Because only ZACK knows his goals and only his attorney is qualified with all of the knowledge of the case to properly represent and recommend a course of action to get ZACK to achieve his goals. The ramifications are if Waid goes to trial and loses, he will likely pay ZACK's attorney's fees. He will pay his own attorney's fees, and he will pay whatever damages come about. They should be significant. I would expect a six-figure damages payout at this point, plus attorney's fees, which may close in on six figures or exceed six figure or go into the 200,000s if this goes to trial. Settling would close this out quicker and would be better for the industry. It's not necessarily better for ZACK, but neither is going to trial necessarily better for ZACK. ZACK will do what his attorney advises him to do. I am not Zack's attorney. I have never been Zack's attorney. I will not and cannot give him legal advice. The only thing I've ever said to Zack in regards to legal advice is, buddy, listen to your attorney. You're paying him tens of thousands of dollars. Don't listen to anybody else. Listen to the man you're paying a fortune to. That's it. And that's all I'll ever say on that issue. A couple more. Darking D says, maybe that's the point. Zaid's not stupid. He knows he's going to lose, so he's stalling to try and win a settlement, but keeping his name off the case as much as possible and attempting to make an excuse to recuse himself if the case goes to trial. Maybe. I think Zaid is actually, has such a perverted view of everything that he's afraid to go to trial. Or no, I misspoke. That he wants to go to trial, that he wants to make a public statement of it, and Waid's wallet be damned, in all honesty. Because I think any sober assessment of this under Texas law says that this is a failure of a case. Now, maybe Waid will surprise us all and do a settlement offer after, and only after he fails in his motions to dismiss. It's very frequent to try motions to dismiss prior to settlement because, you know, if you can win outright, why settle? That's what they're going for here. And finally, two more. Blue Samurai says, the stuff about RCM's character is totally irrelevant to personal jurisdiction. RCM apologized for the dumpster comment. I do not. And to Mags V, trans, Mags V, I assume is the person he called a dog-faced boy or suggested was like the dog-faced boy at a carnival freak show. I do not apologize for anything, by the way. These lawyers are sacks of Schweinhundscheisse. Did you just get me to say profanity in German? Trebuchet them into the dumpster that the elephants use. The cum dumpster that the elephants use. And Matt Field says, allergic to anger, Hulk rages for the past 2 hours. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. Arguments and authorities. The court lacks personal jurisdiction over Mr. Waid. Plaintiff asserts a claim for tortious interference with contract. Plaintiff also asserts a claim for defamation premised on alleged statements by Mr. Waid made through his various social media accounts. Complaint 24. Dismissal of plaintiff's lawsuit with prejudice is inevitable, as this suit is but an effort to stifle Mr. Waid's free speech. Nope. You're not doing this right, by the way. If you're trying to argue a Texas slap motion, you're not doing it right. You're failing right now. And that's what you're arguing, even though you're not making that motion. Plaintiff's claims are so meritless, Mr. Waid is confident he will recover his attorney's fees and other costs from him. I'm sure Mr. Waid is confident in a lot of things, like his own manhood, for example. That doesn't make it true. At the outset, however, this court respectfully does not have personal jurisdiction over Mr. Waid. Legal standard. A court must dismiss an action when it lacks personal jurisdiction over the defendant. Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12b-2. The plaintiff has the burden of proof in establishing personal jurisdiction and carries the initial burden of showing a prima facie case of supporting jurisdiction. See Clemens versus McNamee. This is all correct. While uncontroverted allegations in the complaint must be taken as true, the court is not required to, quote, to credit conclusory allegations, even if uncontroverted. In deciding Rule 12b-2 motion, the court may consider evidence. See Quick Text Inc. versus Sage Group. A district court may exercise personal jurisdiction over a non-resident defendant only if 1, the forum state's long-arm statute creates personal jurisdiction, and 2, the exercise of jurisdiction is consistent with due process. Because the Texas long-arm statute extends to the limits of federal due process, the two-step inquiry collapses into one federal due process analysis. Due process is satisfied when 1, the non-resident defendant purposefully availed himself of the benefits and protection of Texas by establishing minimum contacts with the state of Texas, and 2, the exercise of jurisdiction does not offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. When you commit a court in Texas, you personally avail yourself of the benefits and protections of Texas. Period. When you the exercise of jurisdiction certainly does not offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice, because everything about this case is located in Texas. A defendant is not subject to jurisdiction based on random, fortuitous, or attenuated contacts. General personal jurisdiction is unrelated to plaintiff's cause of action and requires that the defendant have continuous and systematic contacts with the forum state. See Helicopteros Nacionales, Ravel versus Lidov. Specific jurisdiction requires, among other things, that the defendant's contacts with the forum state arise from or directly relate to the cause of action. Yes, like the contact you made with AP to interfere with a contract in the forum state. Neither exists in this case. Plaintiff cannot establish general jurisdiction over Mr. Waid. Plaintiff cannot establish general jurisdiction. Mr. Waid is a California citizen who lives in Santa Monica. Mr. Waid has no presence or even property in Texas. Mr. Waid was served with process in California. That doesn't absolve you from jurisdiction, you liar. For a federal court to exercise general jurisdiction over a non-resident, the defendant's affiliation with the state must be so continuous and systematic as to render defendant essentially at home in the forum state. You tell that to everybody who has run over someone in a different state than which they live. And that's the only time they drove through there. You tell that to someone who has punched someone or threatened someone in a state in which they do not live. You try and argue that the state doesn't have personal jurisdiction over someone who commits a civil cause of action within the forum state. Of course they do. Otherwise, we could just defame everyone so long as we're not in their state. It doesn't work that way. They shouldn't be bringing helicopters into this. They're communists. They'll get thrown right out of those helicopters. The continuous and systematic contacts test is a difficult one to meet, requiring extensive contacts between a defendant and a forum. Mr. Waid cannot be said to be at home in the state of Texas. He simply has no contacts with the state of Texas, much less any supporting the exercise of general personal jurisdiction. Guys, I'm going to do a separate and concise video on the jurisdiction argument. That will be coming. Plaintiff likewise cannot establish specific jurisdiction. Specific jurisdiction is a claim-specific inquiry. Accordingly, a plaintiff bringing multiple claims that arise out of different forum contacts of the defendant must establish specific jurisdiction for each claim. The Fifth Circuit has applied a three-step analysis. Whether the defendant has minimum contacts with the forum state, i.e. whether he purposely directed his activities toward the forum state or purposely availed himself of the privileges of conducting activities there. Guys, remember that his defense is, I'm too retarded to realize I called Texas. Like, that's his defense. I'm so mentally handicapped that I don't realize that I'm calling Texas when I dial a Texas number. Whether plaintiff's cause of action arises out of or results from the defendant's forum-related contacts, and whether the exercise of personal jurisdiction is fair and reasonable. As the Supreme Court recently clarified, the circumstances allowing the exercise of specific jurisdiction are narrow in scope. Walden versus Fior. The jurisdictional inquiry must focus on the relationship among the defendant, the forum, and the litigation. The defendant's relationship with the state must arise out of the contacts that the defendant himself creates with the forum state. Again, like contacting a publisher to interfere with a contract. Due process requires that a defendant be hailed into court in a forum state based on his own affiliation with the state, not based on the random, fortuitous, or attenuated contacts he makes by interacting with other persons affiliated with the state. The necessary minimum contacts are not satisfied, quote, by demonstrating contacts between the plaintiff or third parties in the forum state. For a state to exercise jurisdiction consistent with due process, the defendant's suit-related conduct must create a substantial connection with the forum state. These same principles apply when intentional torts are involved. Yes. Yes. But when does the intentional tort involve the forum state? When you contact the forum state to interrupt a contract within the forum state, it necessarily involves the forum state. Darking D says, settlement has to be accepted before an offer is any good. From what I heard out of ZACK at the onset of this issue, I think it's unlikely he would accept a settlement. He seems to want to make an example of Waid. Again, that's up to ZACK and his attorney. Lots of people go into lawsuits with opinions on how they should turn out, and then their minds are changed by sage and wise counsel of attorneys based on experience, based on, a divorced assessment of the facts. So again, that's between those two. Maybe ZACK would accept a settlement. We'll have to see. Yeah, he was just traveling through Texas. That's right. Okay, because the interference claim rests on merely one alleged fleeting and unintended contact. It wasn't fleeting. It wasn't fleeting and it wasn't unintended. Between Mr. Waid and Texas, personal jurisdiction does not exist for this claim. Even contracting with or being employed by a Texas company without significantly more is insufficient to establish the requisite minimum contacts for jurisdiction purposes. Merely contracting with a resident of Texas is insufficient to establish the non-resident to the forum's jurisdiction. Here, plaintiff does not allege any relationship between Mr. Waid and plaintiff's business or otherwise. He doesn't have to, just the transaction or tort that occurred. Plaintiff conclusorially alleges only one insignificant jurisdictional assertion that happens to be the entire claim for the tortious interference is the one very significant contact that occurred. The entire transaction. That of a phone call between one of the owners of Antarctic Press and Mr. Waid. Plaintiff does not state how long the phone call might have been. He doesn't know. He doesn't have to know. He just knows that the defendant asserted a phone call occurred and that a significant conversation happened. And that the defendant initiated the contact even if AP was returning the call. Mark Waid initiated it because the AP never intended to call Mark Waid until Mark Waid reached out. Plaintiff does not... Nor does he identify where either of the parties to the call were even located at the time. It's because it doesn't matter where they're located. It's 2018. I could commit a tort in China if I try right now. It's current year. Plaintiff's allegations, even taken at face value, come nowhere close to establishing personal jurisdiction as a matter of law. Conclusory allegations, those lacking in location, date, or other detail, are insufficient to demonstrate that specific jurisdiction exists. Except in specific detail, he talked about the location, date, and details of the phone call. Wade's location doesn't matter. Wade could be masturbating in his mom's biff for all it matters. It really just doesn't. Waid could be making a cell phone call from an airline toilet. It doesn't matter. Waid could be on Epstein's Island diddling children when he makes the phone call, interfering with a contract in Texas. Waid could be getting pegged by Mags Visagio or whatever her name is at a comic convention in New Zealand when he calls AP. It doesn't matter where Mark Waid is getting pegged by a former man turned woman. That doesn't matter, okay? It only matters where the tort occurs. And where you are when you make a phone call doesn't occur. When he's sipping from the cum dumpster chalice in England, it doesn't matter. If he's contacting someone in Texas to break up a Texas contract with another Texas resident, it doesn't matter where he's gargling semen. It only matters where the tort occurs. All right. Okay. Let me find my place. Especially in this age of mobile phones. Yes, especially. You think a court that has recognized personal jurisdiction over a magazine publisher that published in all 50 states in one state with no specific targeting of that state just because they publish to everybody. And that was back in like the 50s. You think courts that have upheld that standard are going to care where you were when you dialed a phone number? Was Waid on a mobile phone at the time? Do we even know? You idiot. Especially in this age of mobile phones, an allegation of a phone call, even assuming tortious conduct allegedly occurred during the call, does not support personal jurisdiction. Quote from Michiana, Easy Living Country Inc. versus Holton. Changes in technology, mind you, this is from 2005. So when they're talking about changes of technology, let's bear in mind this is back in 2005. Flip phones, y'all. Changes in technology have made reliance on phone calls obsolete as proof of purposeful availment. While the ubiquity of caller ID may allow non-residents to know a caller's telephone number, the number no longer indicates anything about the caller's location. If jurisdiction can be based on phone conversations directed at a forum, how does a defendant avail itself of any jurisdiction when it can never know where the other party has forwarded calls or traveled with a mobile phone? Let's be clear. This case is distinguishable because in Michiana, it was an unsolicited receipt of a phone call. They didn't pick up a phone like Waid did and dial a Texas area code first. This was a receipt of a phone call, not the initiation of a phone call. So they're already being disingenuous piles of trash. But we knew this. We knew this. Communications with the plaintiff in the forum state are insufficient. The fact that the parties exchanged hundreds of phone calls, texts, and emails are also insufficient contacts. Again, those were made by the plaintiff in those cases, I believe. They were not initiated by the defendant, and the specific tort, I don't believe, was conducted over the phone. But I don't know for sure. I'll look into it. Again, I'm going to do a specific jurisdiction video on this. Slim Santos says, isn't truth as a defense dumb since it's admitting to an act that is tortious interference under Texan law? Waid is a smart. Sometimes you make the defense along with other things. You make an affirmative defense and say, look, I'm not guilty of doing all of this stuff, but even if the court does decide that my actions amount to this, I'm going to assert the affirmative defense and say that even if I'm found to be in the wrong, my actions are justified under this law. So it's not necessarily dumb. For that reason, it's dumb because Texas has not recognized truth as a defense in tortious interference cases. Dank Plank says, Nick's Friday night filibuster is always fun. Thanks, buddy. Super Iron Bob, you are truly a gift. Thank you. You are also a gift, my friend. Dog Whistling Intensifies says, here's some money to get a heart rate monitor like Dick Masterson. And Darking D says, you've heard of the fellow servants standard. Well, now we're getting the fellow phones standard. Yeah. Okay, next. Specific jurisdiction is not established merely by allegations or evidence that a non-resident committed a tort in a telephone call from a Texas number, even if the defendant knew the plaintiff had a significant connection with Texas. Noting defendant knew plaintiff would take his RV bought from defendant to Texas, but finding no jurisdiction over defendant who allegedly committed fraud during call with Texas resident. Now notice the difference. He committed fraud during a call with a Texas resident. The tort occurred with a Texas resident, but the transaction involved a RV that he bought from the defendant and then brought into Texas. The transaction occurred outside of Texas. Plaintiff's vague allegation Mr. Waid had a phone call with Antarctic Press that Waid admits to does not create the type of substantial connection to Texas or purposeful availment that is necessary to support jurisdiction. Yes, Charles S. Or send a super chat or a Streamlabs chat. Those two are the only ways to guarantee that I see it. Super chat and Streamlabs, but I try and monitor the chat, but there's a lot of tagging going on that I'm not following because, one, mildly inebriated. 2, lots of stuff happening and it's hard to follow. But the lack of jurisdiction in this case is even clearer. Mr. Waid did not even know plaintiff was in Texas, nor would anyone else know that from looking at plaintiff's public profile, including his Twitter page, which identifies New York as his location. The defendant asserts specifically that AP doesn't know who he's dealing with, and he does. So trying to claim ignorance about plaintiff now is a little shy of brain cells. Mr. Waid's lack of knowledge of where plaintiff was located makes this case especially easy. Ladies like Mark Waid, also especially easy from what I hear and what I can only assume from 60 years on this earth, being unable to convince a person to marry him and only being good at shaming, degrading, and ridiculing dead women. Mark Waid, defender of women only if they're alive. In order to establish personal jurisdiction over a defendant who allegedly committed an intentional tort in the forum state, plaintiff must show, as one of the necessary prerequisites, that, quote, the defendant knew that the plaintiff would suffer the brunt of harm caused by the tortious conduct in the forum, and point to specific activity indicating that the defendant expressly aimed his tortious conduct at the forum. I don't know. Maybe the Texas area code you called, you cuck. Mr. Waid's lack of knowledge of where plaintiff was located by itself defeats jurisdiction. However, even if Mr. Waid knew plaintiff was in Texas, which he did not, that still would not support personal jurisdiction in this case. Minimum contacts analysis looks at the defendant's contacts with the forum state itself, not the defendant's contacts with persons who reside there. The larger context of the dispute must also be considered. Even if the defendant knew the plaintiff resided in the forum state, see also Herman versus Catafora, finding no jurisdiction over tortious interference and defamation claims because the focal point of the dispute was not the forum, Louisiana, even though defendant, a trial consultant, made statements to a legal affairs website to the effect plaintiffs' lawyers who worked in Louisiana had acted improperly in relation to multi-district litigation in Louisiana because statements at issue did not mention Louisiana and focused on parties' larger contractual relationship. Plaintiff's allegation... Okay. Plaintiff's allegations only further underline the lack of any substantial connection to Texas. For example, the case concerns a comic series to be created by a team spread across multiple states whose subject matter would not be Texas, but rather a giant mutant ape, and that would be aimed at the worldwide comic book market generally, not specifically Texas. And Mr. Waid's comments concerning plaintiff stems from plaintiff's anti-diversity campaign that targets the comic book market generally, not anything unique or connected to Texas. Because there is no relevant connection between the operative allegations of the tortious interference with contract claim and Texas, let alone a substantial connection, there can be no finding of specific jurisdiction over the claim. Again, I believe he is wrong in this argument because everything occurs in Texas. All of it. The entirety of the claim occurs in Texas. Plaintiff cannot establish constitutionally sufficient contacts for specific jurisdiction over his defamation claim. Like his tortious interference claim, plaintiff's defamation claim is entirely meritless. But regardless, plaintiff comes nowhere close to establishing he may pursue that claim in Texas. Court lacks jurisdiction over Waid as to the defamation claim for the same reason it lacks jurisdiction over the tortious interference claim. In fact, on the defamation claim, plaintiff cites no allegation whatsoever in support of his defamation claim that even potentially shows any relevant connection to Texas. Plaintiff's defamation claim is based on allegedly defamatory statements made through Mr. Waid's various social media accounts. Now, I have been very open about this. I don't know that Meyer has a strong defamation case at all. I don't know that Meyer thinks he has a strong defamation case or his lawyer does. There's a very real possibility that they lose the defamation case on this or other grounds. And that's a tiny portion of the lawsuit, in my opinion, kind of attack on the real claim is the tortious interference. The defamation claim is just going to be hard because he's arguably a public figure or at least a limited public figure. And it makes all of this very, very difficult. I think I've said that from the beginning, that the defamation claims are weaker than the TI claims. TI claims are very strong. The plaintiff, the subject of the allegedly defamatory statements, lives in Texas, does not establish personal jurisdiction. As with the tortious interference claim, the case for jurisdiction regarding defamation fails at the outset based on Mr. Wade's lack of knowledge that plaintiff lived in Texas. It's okay that I hurt you in Texas. I just didn't know. Among other things, a plaintiff seeking to show specific jurisdiction as to defamation allegedly committed by a non-resident must first establish that the non-resident actually knew the plaintiff would bear the brunt of the harm in the forum state. I can read the footnote. Plaintiff alleges on information and belief that Mark Wade's social media followers called or threatened Antarctic Press. The allegation in no way supports jurisdiction. Initially, it is facially conclusory, such that it cannot be considered. That's actually not facially conclusory at all. That's an allegation of fact based on information and belief. That's not a legal conclusion, so that's incorrect. Finding allegation made on information and belief merely conclusory. Well, what allegation? More importantly, because allegations made on information and belief are made all the time in civil matters, because they have information and belief leading to the facts underlying it. So if it's on information and belief, but it's factually asserted, then it's not conclusory. And the factual assertion is that Wade's social media followers called or threatened Antarctic Press. That's a factual statement that can be verified by Antarctic Press. It's not a conclusory statement. More important, the actions of third parties do not legally create jurisdiction over Mr. Waid. That's true. The relationship must arise out of context that the defendant himself creates within the forum state. Arguably, the defendant created those statements by making within the forum state by making defamatory claims within the forum state. That certainly can happen in that way. I think if there's a weak argument here from Meyer, the defamation claim is a weak argument. Nevada attorney contacted petitioner in Georgia, but that is precisely the sort of unilateral activity of a third party that cannot satisfy the requirement of contact with the forum state. Great. Let's see. The defendant must be chargeable with knowledge of the forum at which his conduct is directed in order to reasonably anticipate being hailed into court in that forum. He's clearly chargeable with the knowledge of where AP is located. He's clearly chargeable. That's easy to find, and he dialed a Texas area code. Finding no personal jurisdiction where the defendant's affidavit showed he did not even know that plaintiff was a resident of Texas when he posted his allegedly defamatory article. Posting an article on social media is different from contacting a Texas business. See also Calder versus Jones. Finding jurisdiction where, among other things, the defendants expressly aimed widely circulated defamatory article in California because they knew plaintiff lived in California and knew that the brunt of the injury from alleged defamation would be felt there. Mr. Waid did not know plaintiff was in Texas, therefore, he necessarily did not expressly aim any statements at Texas, knowing any effects would be felt there. Sure he didn't. Only all the statements he literally directed straight to Texas. But even if Mr. Waid knew plaintiff was in Texas, which he did not, the case for jurisdiction would fall way short. Way short, totally, guys. For example, Mr. Wade's alleged statements, even assuming they were actually made, do not mention Texas. They were accessible by and aimed at audiences anywhere, not specifically in Texas. They stem from plaintiff's attack on diversity, aimed at the comic book world generally rather than uniquely Texas, and they allegedly harmed efforts to publish a book aimed generally at the comic book market rather than uniquely in Texas. The circumstances of this case make it clear Texas is not even close to the focal point of plaintiff's claims, as would be required for the court to exercise jurisdiction. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read these citations. They're getting long. That the alleged defamatory statements were made over social media, such as Twitter and Facebook, highlights the absence of jurisdiction. Websites like Twitter and Facebook are not social media pages specifically targeted to Texas residents, but rather aimed at the world at large. That's dismissing case for lack of personal jurisdiction where alleged defamation occurred over social media, including Twitter, which did not specifically target Texas. And a footnote. This is Higgins versus Save Our Heroes. Dismissing for lack of jurisdiction where defamatory statements were made over internet, including Facebook and Twitter, because that was not evidence the statements were particularly connected to Minnesota. even though plaintiff lived there. If the use of a Facebook page or Twitter handle was sufficient to confer personal jurisdiction, a defendant could be hailed into court in any state. Professionals Choice Sports Medicine versus Hageman, dismissing for lack of jurisdiction where defamatory statements were made over Facebook because that did not demonstrate that the defendant expressly aimed at tortious conduct in the forum. Broad Voice Inc. versus TP Innovations, dismissing for lack of jurisdiction even though defamatory statements were made on websites specifically created to allow complaints against plaintiff because the defamatory website was aimed at Massachusetts only in the sense that it could be accessed by Massachusetts residents along with the rest of the world. Okay. Charles S. Senpai, notice me. Ahem. Say it goes to settlement. Some kind of NDA is usually involved with those. Since Waid can't keep his mouth shut, what would happen to him if he violated such a settlements clause? It would really depend on the terms of the settlement, of the terms of the non-disclosure agreement, and what liquidated damages would be included in that. It'd be hard to say without seeing what that would be. Adabisi says, are they claiming Mark Waid is too stupid to be guilty? Yes. Darking D says, anyone else notice that this brief repeats itself a lot? Yes, and that's a rhetorical technique. That is a rhetorical technique that is used to psychologically trick the audience. Repetition is a very strong psychological tool, and it is used rhetorically to do that. Ben Cheever says, I knew to be a good guy because I suspected there. He's a busy man who has a full-time day job as well as a publishing house. Sounds like he knows a lot more than he's asserting in the lawsuit. Dirty liar without integrity. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Such communications that are accessible to anyone, anywhere with a computer or mobile device simply cannot be said to, quote, manifest an intent to target and focus on Texas readers. Next. Such social media communications also stand in sharp contrast to a situation in which a publisher physically directs many books into a forum state to commercially benefit the state. See Fielding noting situation where defendant circulated over 10,000 copies of magazine to forum per month, showing tortfeasor had, quote, control over the jurisdiction of his alleged tort, through his intentional availment of the economic benefits of the forum. In sum, Mr. Waid's alleged statements do not come close to showing the necessary intention to target or focus on Texas. Any involvement of Texas in this dispute is at most merely collateral, except for the fact that you called them specifically. And Texas certainly is not the focal point of plaintiff's allegations. I mean, it is. It is. Everything happened in Texas. All of the damage is felt in Texas. Where are you asserting that there would be jurisdiction? Are you trying to say it would be in California? The California would have jurisdiction over a contract in Texas between two Texas residents doing business in Texas? That's what you're going to assert? Because there's no connection between the operative facts of the defamation claim in Texas, let alone a substantial connection, there could be no finding of specific jurisdiction over the claim. Exercising personal jurisdiction over... We're almost done with the complaint, guys. I'm going to wrap it up then. I'm not going to go through the other 80 pages of evidence that are included because I'm going to die if I do that. The ape is from Texas. That's funny. Plaintiff does not establish that the exercise of jurisdiction over Mr. Waid in this case would comport with due process. Alternatively, even if plaintiff could allege facts sufficient to otherwise establish jurisdiction, personal jurisdiction nonetheless would be improper because it would offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Worldwide Volkswagen Corp versus Woodson. Fifth Circuit considers 5 factors in evaluating whether the exercise of jurisdiction is unreasonable. 1, the burden on the non-resident defendant. 2, the interests of the forum state. 3, the plaintiff's interest of obtaining relief. 4, the interstate judicial system's interest in the efficient administration of justice. And 5, the shared interests of several states in furthering fundamental social policies. Applications of these factors confirms that exercising jurisdiction here would offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. First, it would burden Mr. Waid to litigate the matter in Texas. Poor Mr. Waid. Poor Mr. Waid. Unfortunately, you got that crowdfunding thing that paid to make it really easy for you to litigate this matter in Texas. He lives and works in California. Except you've said that he's a freelancer and has no need to work in California. Second, Texas has little to no interest in this litigation. None. What interest would Texas have between a breach of a Texas contract between two Texas residents caused by someone outside of Texas? I can't think of a single thing that would make Texas have interest in that litigation. The only basis for having this lawsuit in Texas appears to be the plaintiff is located here. And AP and the contract, you lying sack of crap. That is not by itself sufficient to implicate Texas's interests, especially since the subject matter of the dispute does not involve Texas, but rather a proposed book aimed generally at the comic book market and a general debate over the role of diversity in that market, not anything unique to Texas. Third, it is not necessary for suit to be maintained in Texas for plaintiff to pursue his meritless claims. I guess they're alleging he could do it in California. Fourth, Texas is not the most efficient forum given that a significant portion of any evidence, including witnesses, will be located outside of Texas. No, one witness outside of Texas, and that's Defendant. The rest of the witnesses will be located smack in Texas. AP and Meyer are the defendants, or are the witnesses that matter. Everyone associated with AP and Richard Meyer, and then Mark Cuckold Cuckhammer Waid. Those people matter for witnesses. Everyone else, even though you want to try and rope in your little cum gargling personal attack dog on Twitter, that person doesn't matter. The dumbest Canadian I've ever met, they don't matter. They're not witnesses to any of this. AP, Mark Waid, Richard Meyer. They matter, and you know it. What witnesses are outside of Texas other than Waid? None. 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 Okay. Let's see. What's next? Fifth, while this lawsuit implicates issues concerning lawful speech, nope. It's unlawful speech in Texas. It presents standard tort claims and concerns an industry, comic books, that in no way is centered in Texas. No, the speech occurred to Texas. The speech is unlawful in Texas and has been for quite some time. Even if jurisdiction were otherwise permissible, exercising jurisdiction over Mr. Waid would offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. You can tell that they know this is a weak argument because you notice this is a 5-part test with only one section. If they thought they had a strong argument here, this is just a technique. If they thought they had a strong argument here, they would have broken it up into 5 different sections with citations to each one. They didn't do that. They know this is a weak argument. It's the Hail Mary pass, y'all. Did I use profanity in my stream? I didn't mean to. Conclusion and prayer. Defendant Mark Waid prays this court dismiss plaintiff's claim and therefore his lawsuit. Mr. Waid further prays for such other and further relief to which he may be justly entitled at law or in equity. You better pray. You better pray, because you don't have a good legal argument here. It's well written, it's well researched, it's just not good. It's just not good, and you know it. So, all right, guys, here's the declaration of Mark Waid. How long is this? 9 pages. We're at 3 hours, guys. You want to read Mark Waid's own words? Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. This should go kind of quick. Tomorrow, maybe that's a good idea. We're at like almost 3 hours. Oh boy. Let me read these chats and we'll see how I'm doing. Blue Samurai again says, if the case separates defamation on Facebook and Twitter from the TI interaction with AP, won't the defamation change his venue depend on wherever ZACK was? This is different from defamatory statements that were made about ZACK to AP during the TI call, right? Yes. Here's the weird thing. If they find jurisdiction on the TI claim, they'll probably claim jurisdiction, but just a choice of law difference on the defamation claim. They might use the California standard for defamation. I guess that would be a possibility, but why would they separate out the claims? They'll just hold jurisdiction in Texas, and then maybe apply California law to the area that Texas wouldn't have jurisdiction over. I think is how that works, but it's been a long night, so we'll see. Will AP owner be asked for statements in this case? Yes. Yes. Okay, I'm going to do it tonight, and here's why. Tomorrow is reserved for the kill stream and the cucks at YouTube and the disgusting maggots, whatever we want to call them, at the Wall Street Journal. The fascists at the Wall Street Journal and YouTube who would take charity money from cancer children. We're going to focus on that tomorrow. So I'm going to do this right now while I've got you. Hang around. Not going to be too much longer, and I'm burn through these 9 pages. I, Mark Waid, on oath, upon oath, hereby declare. So this statement is made under oath by Mark Waid. My name is Mark Waid. I'm over 18 years old, of sound mind, and I am capable of making this declaration. I have personal knowledge of the facts set forth herein, and if called to testify, I could and would do so competently under oath. Competently is a lie, Mark. You can't do anything competently. The statements herein are within my personal knowledge and are true and correct. My general background, I'm the defendant in this case. I write comic books and have been in the comic book industry for more than 35 years. I've authored stories for DC Comics and Marvel, the 2 major comic book companies, including such superheroes as Captain America, Superman, Daredevil, and Wonder Woman. Why do you do disparately more comics about men than women, you racist misogynist? All of those are white people, you racist person who looks like a pedophile. I live in Santa Monica, California, and I have lived in California for more than 2 years. I work from California as a freelance author of comic books. I do not maintain any agents for service of process in the state of Texas. I was personally served with the summons and complaint for this lawsuit filed by plaintiff Richard Meyer while I was at my home in California. I have no interest in use of or possession of real property in Texas. We've read all this. I don't even know how to Texas, bro. I lived in Texas in the early 80s when I was young. I was born in 1962. Nor do I have any ongoing business relationships in Texas. I would find that hard to believe. I bet he does with various conventions. And if Mark Waid were paid for business in Texas, he would actually pay income tax in Texas, except that Texas doesn't collect income tax. So, I think he's towing a line here. I lived in Texas in the early 80s when I was young. I was born in 1962. Before I was a working woman, working girl, lady of the night, working professional in the comic industry. Sorry, I couldn't get prostitute out of my head. But I've not lived in Texas since then. I do not have a mailing address or telephone number in Texas. I've made infrequent visits to Texas, including for brief visits to attend book signings and conventions. At least he threw that in there finally. But those visits had nothing to do with the allegations or people or entities identified in plaintiff's lawsuit. Oh man, I hope Meyer fires back about how he specifically called out Meyer in Texas at that convention. I have not made any statements regarding plaintiff while I was in Texas. You lying pile of trash. You lying, disgusting heap of garbage who has lied under oath. There's audio of you insulting ZACK at Houston Comic Palooza. You liar. You liar. I've not made any statements regarding plaintiff while I was in Texas. You've lied under oath. Your attorneys have published the lie under oath. I hope Meyer bends you over the balance beam and rails you into all the pleasure and oblivion you can sustain. or otherwise engaged in any conduct while in Texas involving plaintiff. Meyer's attorney, Mr. Byrne, if you see this, and Mr. Byrne, I hope you do, and I hope when all this is done, we can share a scotch and talk about it, buddy. Do not, Mr. Byrne, talk to me at all before this is done. I want you to be from me to you, please be as quiet and professional as possible. And I would love to talk to you and visit your office when I come through Texas and have a drink with you, buddy. But for now, bend him over. He lied under oath right there. His attorney lied under oath, and you know his attorney knows about that statement. Bend him over. Bend him over. I've never had office space in Texas, and I do not recall any colleagues with whom I would work regularly living in Texas. At the time of the alleged events in this case, including 2017, 2018, I had no connection to Texas other than comic conventions that I attended in Texas and talked about the plaintiff in Texas. Comic book industry is not centered in Texas. I think actually it's only centered around you, right, Waid? Indeed, there's nothing unique regarding Texas in relation to the comic book industry. Comic book industry is spread across the world. If it is centered anywhere, it would be in California and or New York and in the hearts of social justice. My knowledge regarding plaintiff. I became aware of, in 2017, I became aware of a YouTube channel called Diversity in Comics, which I came to learn is operated by plaintiff. I've seen some of the videos posted by plaintiff on that channel, and it is clear that the channel is not specifically aimed at Texas, but rather is a platform whereby plaintiff directs his complaints about diversity in the worldwide comic industry, generally at audiences wherever they are located. Here is the link to the DNC channel, which indicates more than 90,000 subscribers. Excellent rackets ranting. This is from Captain Mojo. Excellent rackets ranting tonight. You got a quality froth going. My compliments and glad I tuned in. I'm glad you tuned in too, buddy. Thank you. I also became aware that the plaintiff's operates an active Twitter profile. And guys, I know I may have missed a chat or two. I will get to them. Attached as Exhibit 1 is a true and correct copy of what, based on my knowledge and experience in the comic industry is, and what has been publicly represented to me, plaintiff's Twitter profile. That profile states, I run the Diversity in Comics YouTube channel and indicates almost 20,000 followers. Profile references New York, New York. While I became generally aware of the plaintiff's existence and role with regard to DNC, I did not know that he apparently lives in Texas. Whenever I made statements, including any social media posts or tweets regarding plaintiff, I did not know he was in Texas or had any connection with Texas. I did not know where plaintiff was located or where he lived, except you assert that you knew he was in New York. I did not give thought to where he lived or was located, except I read New York. I knew he wasn't in I didn't know he was in Texas. I knew he was in New York, but I didn't give any thought to it. I only learned plaintiff apparently lives in Texas when I received a copy of this lawsuit. I bet that was bad news. I've made posts and tweets from my personal Facebook and Twitter pages accounts. On Facebook during 2017-2018, I had approximately 5,000 friends/followers and nearly 100,000 followers on Twitter. Whenever I would post on Facebook or Twitter, those posts or tweets would show up in the feed of my followers and friends, wherever they may be located. I recall a total of 2 or 3 tweets and Facebook posts from me regarding plaintiff. 2 or 3. That's all, huh? When I made those tweets and posts regarding plaintiff, I did not know where plaintiff lived or was located or whether he had any connection with Texas. I did not make or post them while I was in Texas. And they would have been accessible. Didn't you know he attended comic conventions in Texas and might be at the one that you said he might be at, and asked people to point him out to you so you could have a discussion and to make sure it was him because it would go badly if it was anyone else? And by the way, you soft, doughy, pathetic excuse for testosterone deficiency, I think it would go badly for you if you had any public interaction with any person in an adversarial way. Because I'm pretty sure you would swing that flabby, pasty arm at someone and they would flat out annihilate you before your hand could even think to drop the donut it's holding and make connection with them. And I'm talking about children. I'm talking about literally anyone. Dead people have higher testosterone levels and more fighting spirit in them than your doughball butt. Ugh. Oh, the attempt at a confrontation was in Baltimore? Okay. Okay, I apologize for making a misstatement. Your statements about him were still in Texas. At some point, any member of the public could also access my Facebook and Twitter pages and view my posts and tweets until you deleted them all because you realized you committed a tort, you idiot, even if not a friend or follower. At some point in time, I became aware plaintiffs sought to publish a book called Jawbreakers Lost Souls. That book, as I understand it, would not be about Texas, or at least it is not marketed as aimed at Texas, but rather a story involving a mutant ape. According to press reports, I understood that plaintiff would work with John Malin, Ethan Van Sciver, and Brett Smith on that book. Attached as Exhibit 2 is an article from Bleeding Cool that I downloaded, which discusses the book. Bleeding Cool is a publication that focuses on suckling the penises and weeping vaginas of comic industry insiders because he's a talentless hack who calls himself a journalist and is widely read within that community. I'm sure it is. Circle jerking is rampant amongst insular communities of clueless professionals. From my work in and based on my knowledge of the industry, I was able to identify the Twitter profiles for Malin, Van Sciver, and Smith, which indicate none are in Texas. True and correct. Oh, how would you know? You didn't know that Meyer was in Texas. You're taking their word of their Twitter profile for it again. Doesn't work that way. Mr. Malin's Twitter profile page indicates he's in Michigan, Van Sciver's in New Jersey, and Mr. Smith's in Arizona. I support diversity in comic books. I believe that the roles of women, minorities, and non-straight people make our industry better. Therefore, I developed concerns about plaintiffs' apparent views and activities unrelentlessly targeting. Unrelentlessly? Is it unrelentlessly or relentlessly? His activities would relentlessly target such people if you were making a negative statement about him. If it's unrelentlessly, then he relents at some point. I believe that plaintiff has led a campaign that has resulted in the harassment of many good people within this industry, particularly women in the LGBTQ community. As I began to observe plaintiff's YouTube channel and Twitter activity, but still managed to not know anything about him, I was frankly shocked at his views and insensitivity. For example, attached to this declaration as Exhibit 4 are true and correct copies of tweets from plaintiff's Twitter account that I downloaded from Twitter. You boomer, which exemplify why I became outspoken against him. I'm sure Mark Waid wrote this, by the way. It doesn't look like it was written by the most boring attorney on earth. It definitely looks like it's someone who is legendary for writing compelling narratives, and definitely not like it's someone who's legendary for being the driest, most boring writing profession that could possibly exist. I've read computer manufacturing manuals that are more interesting than this narrative. Plaintiff's offensive comments are not limited to Twitter. For example, I became aware that in a November 2017 YouTube rant, he falsely and disgustingly referred to some comic professionals, including myself, as pedophiles. Good. And he suggested that certain women, some directly named in his rant, had gained roles exclusively because of sexual conduct. Distastefulness is not unlawfulness. Plaintiff's own words and conduct aimed at the comic industry are what caused my concerns regarding plaintiff, not any activity aimed at or involving the state of Texas. Well, except his decision to publish a book in the state of Texas. Right? Like that matters. That's what matters. How have you missed this the whole time? Let's see what he says about Antarctic Press, and let's see if he throws Bleeding Cool under the bus. In May 2018, I had one phone call of approximately 15 minutes with someone I understood to be an owner of Antarctic Press. What you're failing to I had left a message at Antarctic Press and asked that someone return my call. I did not know that Antarctic Press was located in or had operations in Texas. I obtained a phone number for them through industry contacts. I'm guessing that phone number has a Texas a Texas area code, though, right? Did they sound like Texans? I have no idea if the owners of AP sound like Texans. I did not think about where it was located when I called. That's your bad, Waid. After my message, someone identifying himself as associated with Antarctic Press called me back, and we discussed plaintiff. Who? Who was it? What's their name? I did not know where the person was located when he called back, whether in Texas or somewhere else. During this call, I also did not know where plaintiff lived or was located, or that he had any connection to Texas. I still had no knowledge that Antarctic Press had any operations in or connection to Texas. Marsupial Gamer, the standard is likely known or should have known reasonably. So no, I would say it probably doesn't matter. I did not know Antarctic Press or its owners well. Owner or owners well. That won't work for you. But I had run into one of its owners in industry functions before. You didn't know them well. You ran into them once before. That means your communication was not privileged, buddy. Person who called me back identified himself as the brother of the owner whom I had previously met, and he said he had recently taken over Antarctic Press. From my limited interactions with the owner whom I had met, I had a favorable impression of Antarctic Press and respected its reputation. This already goes against the Bleeding Cool. Doesn't he say that he knew the owner of Antarctic Press and the Bleeding Cool thing? Can someone post the link of the Bleeding Cool article where Waid discusses his nonsense? Can someone post that? Because I'm pretty sure he said he knew who the guy was. By this time, there was already an independent and sizable wave of social media backlash for Antarctic Press's possibly publishing plaintiff's book, given his existing reputation as someone of great intolerance. The only reason I wished to speak with Antarctic Press was to investigate what it knew about plaintiff, because I perceived that Antarctic Press may not have known much about him. So then your intent was to inform, not just investigate. You don't have wrenches. Oh, I'll maybe look it up in a minute. We're moving on. Screw it. We're doing it live. During the one call between myself and Antarctic Press, as confirmed by Antarctic Press itself, I did not threaten Antarctic Press regarding whether to enter into business with plaintiff. During the call, in fact, the speaker indicated Antarctic Press had already decided to sever ties with plaintiff because it had learned more about his conduct and reputation. Nothing I said served as the impetus for Antarctic Press's decision. During my call, it became clear that Antarctic Press had already become aware of some plaintiff's hateful words and conduct, and this had caused the publisher substantial concern. Person I spoke to mentioned that he was not on social media and therefore lacked specific knowledge of plaintiff's conduct. But he said he had been strongly educated by his staff and other freelancers. He noted that based on what he had learned before I ever spoke to him, what I've learned of Meyer's behavior is indefensible. I did not tell or even ask Antarctic Press to not publish Jawbreaker's Lost Souls. I believed that Antarctic Press had the right to publish Jawbreakers, just as I and others have the right to debate and disagree with views like those espoused by plaintiff. You do, but not to the publisher. In public tweets, Antarctic Press stated, same exact nonsense from before. These tweets are attached as Exhibit 5, true and correct copies of which I downloaded from Twitter based on my knowledge of the industry and information I gleaned after my call with Antarctic Press. I learned these tweets came from Antarctic Press's Twitter account, and other public tweets, true and correct copies of which I downloaded from Twitter, which are attached. Antarctic Press stated, ultimately, some of our staff and freelancers were uncomfortable. Why don't you put the fear and trepidation of some forces in the industry tweet up? Cuck. These public statements are consistent with my call with them. Sure they are. I did not threaten Antarctic Press, and I never demanded or asked that it not publish plaintiff's book. No, you just offered them an interview if they made that right decision, right, buddy? I also never told or asked any of my followers, friends, or anyone else to contact Antarctic Press, and therefore I certainly did not tell anyone to threaten or harass Antarctic Press. I understand that Mr. Meyer got hold of a private social media chat. Watch him in the next paragraph accuse Meyer of what he didn't do. private social media chat among representatives of comic book stores from all over the world who individually had decided not to carry his book for sale. I did not tell or ask any of these stores not to carry plaintiff books. In publicly divulging screenshots showing the identities of these stores, Mr. Meyer declared to his followers, okay, get ready. Here come screenshots of the retailers colluding to prevent customers from buying Jawbreakers / Souls in comic book shops. It's from a private Facebook group for retailers titled Final Order Cutoff. There we go. Plaintiff's campaign against diversity is not aimed at Texas. From my perspective, his target is the comics industry as a whole, and it's actually not. It's specific comic creators who give into the idea of putting diversity, forcing it via shoehorn into places it doesn't belong. And he appears to equally abhor the role of a woman or a minority, whether in Texas, California, or somewhere else. Ben Cheevers, I'm reading your stuff. Let's see if this works. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Marsupial Gamer. If YouTube doesn't allow you to do this stuff, it's not my fault. Sorry. That didn't work specifically, but it worked pretty well. Let's see what he says. This is a long article. So I called the publisher, who I knew to be a good guy because I suspected there was more to this than yes, sign us up to make money for the transphobe. And there he was. And there was. He's a busy man who had a full-time day job as well as a publishing house. He's not much for social media, so it never occurred to him to vet the creators. Why would it? That's an honest mistake to make. As a publisher myself, if I see work I like and want to publish, it doesn't automatically occur to me to just, yes, it does, you defender of women and minorities. By the way, make sure the creator is a decent human being. I phoned him out of legitimate concern to warn him that there seemed to be a lot of anger directed at him by his fans, unhappy that he so openly embraced someone whose entire reputation was based on harassment and preaching intolerance and bigotry. Not warn him like, hey, if you know what's good for you, I'm just saying, warn him, as someone who has respect for him, that he might not realize who he'd gotten into bed with. There you go. There you go. Let's see. Going back to it. Thank you for that, by the way. Thank you for that. Let's see. Based on my knowledge of the industry, plaintiff's reputation from that campaign had developed before I ever spoke publicly about him, as indicated by those... dang it. Sorry. As indicated by those deciding not to do business with him, and as seen in articles about him, such as the following, true and correct copies of which are attached here too. Bleeding Cool. Let's see. Let's see if No Enemy But Peace is included. No, it isn't. No Enemy But Peace is shockingly not included here. Plaintiff has publicly claimed that he has raised a substantial amounts of money to publish Jawbreakers since Antarctic Press chose not to publish the book. They're separate. They're separate. He raised money to publish Jawbreakers himself. He had a publishing agreement with Antarctic Press for a subsequent publication of Jawbreakers. They're different things. His Indiegogo is not the same, and you know it. You know it. Let's see. Claiming he had raised more than $250,000 in a short period of time. For example, attached as Exhibit 12 is a true and correct copy of a tweet that I downloaded from Twitter, indicating to me that Antarctic Press's decision not to publish Meyer's book was actually a boon to him. Yeah, it can actually benefit him, but still cause him financial damage because they're unrelated projects and people decided to back something else because they could not buy the other product. That doesn't mean it's beneficial and that he didn't sustain damages. I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. Man, I hope they just walk into court with a little tape and said, Your Honor, these statements were made in Houston, Texas. Play. You liar. All right, guys, I'm not going to go through any more of this. There, look at this. There's 104 pages of stuff. It's mostly tweets. I may go through it at some other point. Another video on this will be forthcoming, not a live stream, but talking specifically about jurisdiction and how Texas handles jurisdiction, because you can bet that the treatment in this is favorable, So let me handle the last few chats, and I will say thank you so much. Having 700 plus people watch me at 4 a.m. Is humbling. Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for hanging out with me. I know this has been a long stream and you've had to tolerate a lot of my ranting, but this garbage pisses me off. This is a bad man attorney, bad man who I do not care for. I do not care for people who misrepresent things. And I certainly don't care for liars like Waid who lie to the court under oath. Let's hit these last chats. Greg Bugan. Will AP owner be asked for statements in this case? If this goes beyond initial dismissal, yes. I imagine he will be deposed. I imagine that deposition will be hours long. And man, I hope I could be there. Captain Mojo says, excellent rackets ranting tonight. You really got a quality froth going. My compliments and glad I tuned in. Oh, we read that one on the fly. Sorry to read it twice. Let's see. Next is Abadisi says, Waid should have hired a crippled person of color to show his true beliefs since he believes in representation. Actually, he might have had a better case if he did that. Blue Samurai again says, in the Bleeding Cool article, May 13th, paragraph before where you read, Waid said, I gave him Antarctic Press a call. I'd met him before. He seemed like a good guy and something didn't jibe. Yeah. Yeah. When I heard the fans and creators were coming down on the AP publisher for doing business with Meyer, I gave him a call. I'd met him before. It seemed like a good guy, and something didn't jibe. I was surprised that he'd want to get into bed with someone whose idea of marketing was to ask his fans to put together a list of stores, chose not to carry his book, and then to circulate that list along with the full names. Because again, why would anyone want to tell people where they can buy their book and where they can specifically not buy their book? Or to ask them to go into the store and say, hey, will you special order this book for me? Why would anyone want to do that? I don't believe that anyone in the comics industry anymore knows how to interact with fans anyway. Blue Samurai says, last tip for the night. Thanks for the fun. Dad was a lawyer. He taught me you never litigate. You live with integrity instead and avoid litigation. Thanks for everything. We'll pray for your liver. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Well, guys, there we go. Thanks again for watching. Let me find all this. Jeez, I'm very disorganized with this new setup, but I'm getting used to it. Thanks again. I will, of course, announce on Twitter when my jurisdiction video comes out. It will be much more focused and concise. Early next week, will be the target for that. Maybe Sunday, but probably Monday or Tuesday. It'll be similar to the truth and justification video, so it'll be target 20 to 30 minutes tops, and it will be focused on jurisdictional arguments using Texas case law. So be prepared or on the lookout for that. Thanks for watching. You guys have a good night. I'm going to blank out the stream. Once I see it blank out on your end, I'm going to end the stream. Thank you for supporting me and all of that stuff. Peace. I will talk to you very soon. Peace.